This is the Vaguely Nerdy Podcast, where every week this brother-sister duo gets together to discuss box office, latest film and TV scoops, along with our latest movie or show review, and what we're getting into next. We are your host, Cheryl.
And Jay.
All right, you are on deck to quiz me. Make it easy.
Okay.
So, we have pets, okay? We both have dogs, and one dog is trying to get a
toy that is clearly out of her reach.
Right. As soon as we start recording, she's been down here the whole time.
Okay, so we did 2 movies this week. One is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and the other is Rebel Moon Part 1, Child of Fire.
Such a long name.
So I have 2 trivia questions for you this week, but they're not hard.
Sure.
So first one is going to be on Aquaman.
Okay.
Okay, so Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom marks the first sequel film for one of the actors that are starring in this movie.
First sequel film.
So if you think about the core cast,
okay,
this movie is the first time one of these cast members have ever done a sequel.
I would have guessed at least 3 people, but you say it's only one?
Mm-hmm.
It's not Nicole Kidman. Has she ever been in the sequel of something? Amber Heard.
That's your answer?
Final answer.
Incorrect.
Is it Nicole Kidman?
It is Nicole Kidman.
Oh.
This is the first time Nicole Kidman has starred in a sequel. Technically, she was in Batman Forever, which was a sequel, but because she was not in the first Batman, this is the first time
not her
she's ever,
sequel.
Yeah, this is the first time Nicole Kidman has ever returned to a role.
Oh, wow.
Her entire filmography is made up of
And I immediately was like, it ain't Nicole Kidman? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm 0 for 1. Next.
Okay. Next one is a Rebel Moon question.
Definitely getting this one wrong.
Multiple legends were considered for the role of Jimmy the Robot in Rebel Moon Part 1, Child of Fire.
Okay.
Until Sir Anthony Hopkins was chosen. Name 3 of them. There are 5, if you can name 3.
Legends.
Mm-hmm.
That they wanted to voice cast for Jimmy is a robot,
and
they wanted a legend to voice. So that was
they chose a legend, but they
chose a legend. But the fact that they were like, we got to get a legend for this robot is very interesting to me. Okay, Robert De Niro.
No.
Al Pacino.
No.
Morgan Freeman.
That's 1.
Okay. Is another one of them black?
You have gotten the 1 black.
Okay. Who else is really good with Russell Crowe? Is he a legend? I don't know.
No.
Okay. James wait, nope, you said the only black person.
Yeah, you got the 1.
I'm trying to think of who else is really good with voices. That Tom Hanks?
No. You're thinking Anthony Hopkins' age range.
Okay, so very old. Who else is what's his name? Michael Keaton? Not Michael Keaton. Michael Caine.
Okay, you're in the correct ballpark, but no.
No. That's that old? They're like in their 80s, right?
Yeah.
70s, 80s?
I'll give you 2 more.
Okay. Not Al Pacino.
You got 1.
I got 1. I'm blanking on legends.
3 of them are very obvious.
Are they known for their voice acting though, or
no,
they're just known for
acting? Known
acting?
for being, because Anthony Hopkins is not known for his voice acting.
Right, but
they're
he's
known
done
for
voice
being
work.
legends on screen, just like Anthony Hopkins.
Okay. What's his name? Harrison Ford.
Age range.
They both are 80-ish.
He's not the same age as Anthony Hopkins.
They're close. They're the same generation.
Okay.
Oh gosh. So not Harrison Ford. Okay. Let me get one more choice here.
I thought this was an easy one.
No, I told you I was gonna get it wrong. Okay, let's dwindle it down. Have they been in a Marvel movie?
No, none of these people have.
Okay.
Other than Anthony Hopkins.
That helps. That actually does not help.
They have not been in an MCU movie.
Have they been in a DC movie? Offhand, no.
No.
I think I'm out of names.
You are?
Yes, I give up.
Okay. Ian McKellen. Sir Ian McKellen
Dang
was
it,
considered.
Dang it. I should have said an X-Men movie.
Sir Patrick Stewart.
Oh, really?
I did say they weren't an MCU film.
You're right. But if I would have guessed one of them, I would have guessed the other.
Liam Neeson. Even though I don't know if he's in the same age range, but
No.
he has a career that is
But you would
just as
recognize him.
lengthy.
Well, you would also recognize him by the voice, I feel
Absolutely. Morgan Freeman, what you got? And Anthony Daniels. If you don't know who that is, he is the voice of C-3PO. But I think that would have been too on the nose casting wise. So they went with somebody else.
Let's wait for the Star Wars references. Okay. I can definitely see any one of the three in there for sure.
Wait, any one of what three?
Morgan Freeman, Ian McKellen, and Patrick Stewart. I don't know about the rest of them.
I don't know about Liam Neeson.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know about Liam Neeson. Like,
yeah.
I mean, anybody could be a voice actor, but if you're going for like a heavy hitter, no. But Liam Neeson was the dragon in
They could have had Ralph Ineson do it.
Listen,
I enjoy
that would have been my favorite character.
I enjoy Ralph Ineson voice work.
Yes, very much so. But those were good. 0 for 2, but good trivia questions.
All right, that is the trivia for this week. Now let's get into the episode. Welcome, fellow movie buffs. I'm Jay.
I'm Cheryl.
Listen in as we break down movie and TV shows, tell you what's in the plot, and hear if we think you should have watched it when you had the chance.
Dun, dun, dun. Alrighty, so for this week we have a double feature. So we'll keep the news a little light, but we'll see how long we go because y'all know we like to talk. We have some uncasting news for the MCU.
Uncasting.
Not casting. This is our first uncasting news break here. We have some movie and show announcement news. We have a game leak that was very large that happened in the video game space, and then we'll get into our 2 movie reviews. First Rebel Moon, and then we'll do Aquaman second. It's kind of like the opening act and then the grand finale.
Yeah,
it's literally a grand finale when you think about it for the DCEU. So that works.
Okay, so first news topic: uncasting.
Dun, dun, dun.
Jonathan Majors is out as Kang.
I'm so shocked. Not
right.
really.
So Disney confirmed after he was found guilty on 2 of his 4 charges that just wrapped up this past week.
Yes, it was this week.
They have officially announced him as they have separated from him. He's
officially.
No longer going to be playing Kang in the MCU. I believe that this was decided a very long time ago. They just saved it in the drafts until a verdict was sent out.
Yeah, I would bet that. I actually think no matter which way this went, they were probably going to separate. Whatever. So
the ins and out of the court case, we're going to leave to the actual journalists who do the reporting of news. What we're going to just talk about is the MCU stuff. Yeah,
Avengers.
Right. So. Rumors is that Kang Dynasty is now being referred to as Avengers 5.
Boo.
I mean...
Listen, there's 2 sides of the coin now. It's either recast, either recast, which they're obviously going to do if they keep Kang, or the other side of the coin is get rid of Kang and bring in everybody wants Doom for whatever reason. And I'm like, no, please no. I am team keep Kang and just recast.
Yeah, but also... MCU movies change their titles all the time.
True.
And 9 times out of 10, the tagline that's tied to a movie when they announce it at a Comic-Con does not make it to the final stages. So you're thinking
even if they change Avengers Kang Dynasty to something else, it could still center around Kang?
I think Kang can still be a part of it.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be centered around Kang, but I think Kang, the character, can still play a role. I don't think them taking the Kang Dynasty out of the subheader of the title
means that they changed their whole...
It's going to,
I think if they don't continue with Kang, it kind of minimizes the sacrifice Loki made in season 2 of Loki. So I don't know. The setup is there.
And I think it also would add validity to a lot of claims that these last 2 phases were about nothing. Because if you get rid of the whole focal point of the villain, that does actually say that, you wasted your time in these last 2 phases.
Right, because the villain that could literally be everywhere, we decided is going to be nowhere.
Right.
So, yes, team recast.
Yeah.
I'm 10 toes down in that.
Michael Waldron was announced as the writer of Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. I don't think he's
about a month ago.
I don't think he's still writing Avengers 5.
Well, Avengers 5 is Kang Dynasty.
Well, I don't know if he's still set to be the writer of it now.
Well, they announced this a month ago, so I'm hoping nothing has changed in the last 30 days.
That's fair.
A lot of things are happening, but from my perspective, we're still getting Avengers. I think Kang is going to stay. We'll see who's right and who's wrong.
I still stand by my statement I made a couple episodes ago where Kang is the Marvel and DC, all comic books, honestly, don't have that many villains. Right. There are not that many villains in the comic book space.
Get rid of one.
And then you have villains, yes, but then you have like major story arc villains like your Thanoses, and they wasted Ultron because they only gave him one movie, and he was like a Thanos level villain in the comics. Kang is the same thing, so there aren't enough villains to start throwing them to the wind.
I know that they're going to do a lot of like rewriting and restructuring, or maybe not do a lot. We don't know what the whole plan is with these next phases, and they could still be going on with the whole plan for these next phases with some tweaks. I figure like they could figure Kang out.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, well, let's just get to Doom and get to Secret Wars that the people want to see. And I think that people who say that don't understand that that's it. After you get Secret Wars and after you get Doom, you know what the comics do? They reboot. And then you just get Thanos and Kang.
You get the same thing
Magneto,
over again.
And you get them all over again. So when you want to jump to Secret Wars and get to the end, you're running out of actually material to consume.
The Thanos saga, which is the Infinity Saga, expanded 10 years. Y'all can wait. We can wait for them to flush out the whole storyline for us to just be like, oh, let's just get rid of this villain and swap in another villain. Like that's the easy thing to do. So
we can talk about this week in unfounded rumors that have been spread all over the internet.
There's so many.
So now there's this rumor going around that the Avengers 5 is going to be the end of the Avengers saga.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Have you been seeing that?
No,
yeah. So there's a rumor that Avengers 5 is going to be the end of what's called the Avengers saga.
And so it's you mean Avengers 6? Because there's Kang Dynasty and there's still Secret Wars.
Well, so basically there's the Infinity Saga.
Right.
But the Secret Wars is going to be the end of the Avengers Saga. The Infinity Saga is supposed to be inside the Avengers Saga. And then after Infinity War is over,
I see.
They're going to shift to the Mutant Saga, where it's just mutant-centered stories.
Mutant and Fantastic Four, obviously.
Yeah, mutant. Right, exactly.
I'm sorry, X-Men and Fantastic Four.
Exactly, because you think they're going to only focus on mutant-centered stories after they introduce the first family of Marvel. That makes absolutely zero sense.
Right.
But I do think there is a good idea in that.
I can see that.
I think that they should keep mutants in their own universe.
Okay.
I think after Secret Wars, they're going to bring Monica back. She's going to come back over. She's going to bring the X-Men with her. They're going to do all the Secret Wars stuff. And then I think they should send the X-Men and all the mutants back to their own universe where they came from. And then if you want to tell X-Men stories, do it in that universe. Okay. And keep it there. And then if you want to cross over, you have all of these characters that they've already shown, Scarlet Witch and America Chavez. Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. We've already introduced all these characters who have the ability to easily jump between multiverses. You can bring them back together whenever you want to. I think the MCU is too crowded. Okay. It's starting to make as the movies go on, it's starting to make less and less sense how villains are able to move about the world because you have so many heroes and so many
that could be able to kick their butts.
We still haven't. The longer it goes, where they don't address the Celestial that's sticking out of the ocean,
I could not wait until they bring that back up so people can be at peace.
It makes it's the more and more crowded the universe gets, it makes less and less sense how all of these different teams and heroes are able to operate and do things, and without the other teams showing up and intervening,
helping out.
I think keeping the X-Men in their own universe, you have a fresh world, you have a fresh universe, and in that way it kind of feels like a reboot because you can kind of tell similar stories with the X-Men twist
in their own special
in this world that has not had a civil war, right? In this world that doesn't have Kree or Skrulls, right. And it's like instead of throwing everybody in the same sandbox, you buy a new sandbox
and just move them a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, and you can do more stuff in both sandboxes. Yeah, I think that would be a smart thing to do.
I think they're going to bring up more of the street level heroes as well.
And they can tell more street level stories.
With the whole phasing out the Avengers, I think they could do that because they could still keep the street level part, and then they could keep, like you just described, X-Men, and then you have Strange popping up, or you have Captain Marvel popping up. Like, which I don't know here.
Yeah.
Which I need some help. Call me.
I think the Avengers, taking a break from the Avengers for a while, I think is fine. There are so many teams in the MCU. Some of them have Avengers characters on them.
Yeah,
so
you can still have them
have
there.
To only have Avengers movie as the only team up movies.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like that idea. We'll see what comes of it.
But that's just unfounded rumors.
There's so many. Listen, now we're at the level of Scooper saying anything and hoping it sticks later.
Yeah.
And at this point, I believe none of them.
Yeah, so we talked about that earlier. We're at a point where Scoopers are now just saying everything so that no matter what gets chosen, somebody can take the credit for being the first to say it.
Right.
So nobody's actually telling the truth. They're just saying everything that can be said because it increases the chances of something that they dropped out there getting picked up.
And it also keeps them busy.
And it also keeps them busy.
Because we're about to get, maybe not totally quiet, but the next big Marvel movie is not until July.
And DCEU has
DC
nothing
is
going
about
on
to be really quiet
right
all of 2024 because their next movie isn't until 2025. So they need to keep hope alive and keep the chatter going. So I think that's partially why they're just like, Jesus is playing Iron Man.
Yeah.
I heard it. It's true.
Every week there's a new list of 5 regular actors who are rumored to be in talks with Disney or in talks with the MCU.
Yes.
And just
so-and-so is coming back, but we don't know it's who. He just coming back. Like, okay, y'all. Yeah. Sure, Jan.
So that is our uncasting news for this week. Let's jump into positive movie news.
So we got a announcement. I guess it was like an official press release announcement from Netflix for a series called 0 Day. It's starring Angela Bassett, who is going to be playing the president. It also stars Robert De Niro, who is playing a former president. And is described as it sounds like a political conspiracy thriller. The synopsis is, at the center of the narrative is De Niro's Mullen, a popular but complicated figure who is yanked back from retirement, aka I think he used to be the former president, to head a commission investigating a global cyber attack. So it's giving Mission Impossible with a tenured cast. I like Angela Bassett in anything. One of my favorite Angela Bassett roles was her in Mission Impossible.
She was a great character in Mission Impossible. She was the one who sent Henry Cavill in to work with Tom Cruise and the rest.
And there was some line in Mission Impossible.
That's the job.
There it is. And she was just like, I mean, that's the job.
When Alec Baldwin was like, but they're gonna get killed, she was like, that's the job.
That is one of my favorite Angela Bassett lines. She was also in one of the Gerard Butler movies that she
both Olympus Has Fallen and they killed her off in Angel Has Fallen.
Right. So she need redemption. So her being the president, 12 out of 10. I'm all for it.
I'm all for that. Robert De Niro is
being a former president.
Being a former president, it seems like he's hanging out at Netflix a lot lately. He just had that Irishman movie came out with Martin Scorsese that was also released under Netflix.
Oh, okay.
So this synopsis is very interesting. I'm very interested in seeing it. I will support anything that Angela Bassett does.
Absolutely.
Although I do think being the president after being Queen Ramonda is a step down politically, but I'll take it because
she's playing like an American, so there's no queen.
Boo.
There's no queen availability there. What else was so you said something that made me think of something else. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Angela Bassett?
Oh, there it is. No, neither one of those. It's interesting how a lot of A-list actors are now very warmed up to doing streaming movies and streaming shows.
I think it just keeps the income in.
And they're probably obviously paying. Obviously.
Let's be honest. I think the notion of actors, the prestige of actors only doing movies that go to theaters has fallen off because people aren't going to theaters anymore.
Not as much.
So it's not as cool to be like, oh, you're an actor and you only do box office films. And it's like the box office hasn't been doing very well since COVID. So it's not, the luster has worn off.
There was a big thing. I think it might have been Steven Spielberg, who they were very anti-streaming. Like they didn't want their movies going on streaming. Streaming movies weren't getting nominated for awards. They were getting, there's there's still a little bit of that. Like most of your movies that get nominated for awards are coming from the big five: Paramount, Disney, WB, but they in there. So it's interesting to see that the tide has turned on streaming movies and shows.
I think because the awards go to where the actors are, not where the movies are. There are plenty of movies that go to theaters that don't get awarded. And I mean, that's just how it is.
Right. On the flip side, streaming is also destroying theatrical release calendars.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother topic.
And I think that's also
There's two sides of the streaming coin. One, actors are kind of being like, oh, let me go and check that out. And the other side is people are not going to theaters because movies are going on streaming in like 15 days.
And I also think that's another reason why being a actor who only does movie theater roles
it's going to be on streaming in 20 days anyway.
Streaming is destroying that avenue of revenue. So
it's crazy how fast movies are going to streaming these days. I just like, y'all not giving people a chance to even go to the movies to go see it. No. But not my circus.
Next show announcement we have is called Eyes of Wakanda. This is an animated series that is going to Disney Plus, another streaming service. Ryan Coogler is said to be involved in the project, but we don't know if he's doing any writing or directing or even producing. We just know that he's being involved. They mentioned that Ryan Coogler wanted to do a Wakanda series a long time ago.
He had a while ago, I think maybe before Wakanda Forever came out, it was announced that Ryan Coogler signed a Disney deal, like a Disney Plus deal to put out content. Now I won't say content, to put out films or series, more than just content for Disney Plus. So I think this is one of the things he'll be doing.
Yeah, so the show is going to follow Wakanda throughout Wakandan history. Brave warriors have been tasked to travel the world retrieving dangerous vibranium artifacts. This is their story. I like how you wrote that. Like, did you write that or was that like pulled?
That is the official.
It ends like the intro to Law and Order. This is their story.
Dun, dun, dun. This was the official. I ripped this from the headlines of whatever article came out that announced this. I think when they did a What If premiere, they like showed the first 2 episodes of What If. This was announced at that premiere, and that was what they gave the people to say what this was about.
So the without history part is telling me that it's going to cover a broad timeline.
Eras.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
And I think that's cool. What I'm excited about is seeing different versions of Black Panther because they're always different kings. Yeah. So maybe we'll see T'Chaka, his dad, time as Black Panther and some of the things he got up to, and the grandfather. We saw all of the ancestors in the astral plane.
Right. That would be pretty cool.
The first Black Panther. So maybe we'll get to see all of those characters actually be Black Panther in their different ruling eras.
Right. I'm curious what the animation style is going to be. If it's going to be more like What If, or is it going to be more like, I don't know, Toy Story? Or is it going to be more like OG kind of hand-drawn animation?
Yeah, animation style would be very interesting to know.
Very curious. There is no release date yet of when this is coming out. I think it's speculated that it's coming out next year, like late next year. But
I'm not going to hold them to that. They got a lot going on.
We already have Echo and Agatha Darkhold Diaries.
Which are 2 things I'm excited about.
Very looking forward to both of those. So I'm in
because they turned me completely around on Echo because I was one of the people.
They turned everybody around.
Nobody wants to see Echo, and then I saw the first 2 trailers, and so that the Disney
everybody
magic is still there.
Egg on their face, including both of us when we was looking at Echo. Like, girl, don't nobody want this.
They did. They made me look like, real fair weather.
This actually look really good. Yeah. So looking forward to that. Another footnote that I put on here that Ryan Coogler is also developing a new version of X-Files, which I think is also falls under Disney as well.
Fox. Yep.
Okay. Oh, there it is.
They acquired. I'm very interested in that. I did not watch a lot of the X-Files. X-Files is one of those things that I kind of caught on TV during summer break when I was sitting at Aunt Gloria's house.
I did not watch a lot of X-Files because it was a little too spooky for me. I didn't watch Unsolved Mysteries either because it would kind of freak me out because the mystery was unsolved.
I was too young for that type of content to understand what was happening in the show. So I was just kind of looking at it. But as an adult, it kind of seems like Law and Order for supernatural stuff.
Yes.
And as an older adult who has shed my childish inhibitions, I am interested in watching an X-Files show as an adult.
I'll watch anything that Ryan Coogler is attached to. So
absolutely
sold.
Next bit of news.
This is breaking news.
This is breaking. We got this piece of news as we were updating our sheet today. Christopher Landon has walked away from the role of directing Scream 7.
Which is not crazy, not unexpected, but still wild.
I think this was a decision that he had to make for the best interest of himself.
Right. So if you didn't know what's going on with Scream 7, Melissa Barrera was fired for speaking out against genocide. So they let her go. And I don't know if this was official or a rumor. Apparently there was a meeting with her. Spyglass tried to have a meeting.
She confirmed that they did have a meeting.
They tried to get her back after fired her. But she stood on business and said no thank you. And then Wednesday, why is her name blanking? Jenna Ortega also left Scream 7. So Scream 7...
Allegedly, she was never going to be in it, according to Spyglass.
They say. I don't know if we'll ever get the truth about how she exited. But
I'll believe what Jenna tells us about whether or not she took a job or not.
If she ever says. So Scream 7 at the time had no leads. Both of the lead characters or lead actresses were gone.
All they had were the twins left.
All they had of the core four were the twins, which no disrespect to them, but I'm pretty sure they weren't banking on them two to carry the movie.
And Courtney Cox, and no disrespect to her, but Courtney Cox is best served as a supporting character.
Yes, and Neve Campbell was already not coming back because they wasn't paying her for Scream 6. So only thing they really had at that point was the director, and now he is gone.
So I'll read the full statement because Christopher Landon announced his resignation on Twitter in a tweet. It says, "I guess now is a good time as any to announce I formally exited Scream 7 weeks ago." So Spyglass had been keeping under wraps that they had no director for this film.
I wonder
had no actors and no director for this. This film was just a twinkle in somebody's eye.
Yeah.
Purgatory. This will disappoint some and delight others. It was a dream job that turned into a nightmare, and my heart did break for everyone involved. Everyone. But it's time to move on. I have nothing more to add to the conversation other than I hope Wes's legacy thrives and lifts above the dim and divided world. I think he meant to put dim. Lifts above the dim and divided world. What we and Kevin created is something amazing. That does make me sad.
Yeah.
And I was honored to have even the briefest moment basking in their glow. Kevin is Kevin Williamson, who is the writer of the Scream films.
Okay.
He's written the first, second, third. No, he's written the first and second one, not the third one, which nobody liked.
Right.
Came back for the fourth one, fifth one, and I don't know if he wrote the sixth one.
Okay.
But he was back to write the seventh one. So he's written all the good ones. So that did make me sad. Also, the tweet, he obviously wrote in a iOS notepad before he pasted it on Twitter, because the first tweet ends with, "I have nothing." And I had to go to this page to be like, wait a minute.
Whoops. Backspace.
Christopher Landon, if you don't know, is a director who primarily does like slasher films, but like super campy slasher films like Freaky, which was the slasher version of Freaky Friday.
So this would have been right up his alley.
He also did both Happy Death Day sequels, movies, not sequels. Happy Death Day was the movie about the girl it was Groundhog Day. It was a slasher version of Groundhog Day.
And she was trying to find who killed her, right?
Yeah, every day she was killed, and she had to break the cycle by finding out who was the person that was killing her.
Okay.
So I do feel bad for Christopher Landon because he does make really good films.
So this was probably like his peak job.
He said this was his dream job, which I can tell because a lot of his movies are influenced by Scream. He also did the We Have a Ghost movie, which came out on Netflix with David Harbour and Anthony Mackie.
Okay. I feel like I heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
It was like a comedy movie where the guys lived in a house and they had a ghost.
Huh. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So, but Christopher Landon has a good filmography. He'll be just fine. Melissa Barrera just wrapped up her A24 horror movie, so she's already back in the horror space. Jenna Ortega's got Wednesday and whatever else is going on.
Beetlejuice 2.
Mindy is still on Yellow Jackets.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's still working.
Everybody will probably still work. I think the biggest
Spyglass.
I was gonna say, I think the biggest losers of this situation will be the studio that fired Melissa. So that's their loss. Oh well.
Yeah, if Dimension was still around, they would have never have let this fumble the way it did.
Be a better studio. Yeah. is the lesson here.
Last time we talked about this, I think we said that they were trying to get. There was a rumor that they were trying to get Neve Campbell and Patrick Dempsey back.
There was a rumor.
That they also say no.
I at this point, Scream's just going to have to go quietly into the nights, and they're going to have to give it some time and then try to revive it later, because at this point, I don't think anybody would, not anybody, but I don't think the turnout would be very good for a movie that if it came out within the next year or so.
I think putting the movie out would be more controversial at this point. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Correct. So just save everybody the heartache and just lick your wounds.
Learn from this. We're rooting for you.
Right.
We were all rooting for you. How could you?
Right. Until we learn that you treat your actors like trash.
I've never had to talk to somebody like this in my life.
So Scream 7 to be determined.
Next bit of news and last piece of news, and it is a doozy.
So we talked about this, and I'm going to let you talk mostly because you are way more knowledgeable about this space. And
okay.
I said, if this were me or happened to me in my company, I would burn the earth down. But let me let you go ahead and explain what happened.
So there was a very large, and this will probably go down in history as far as cyber attacks, but there was a ransomware attack. They didn't elaborate how this occurred or the person who succumbed to this treacherous email.
Yeah, right. Unfortunately.
There was a ransomware attack at Insomniac, which is a game developer who is mostly known right now for making the Spider-Man games.
That everybody likes. They were, because of the Spider-Man games and how successful they are and the writing and stuff that goes behind them, Marvel went all in and said, we're hiring you guys to make our full slate of upcoming superhero games going forward because you guys have done the best at it. So they were working on a Wolverine game, which was going to follow the play style just like the other Spider-Man games, but it was going to be just based on Wolverine and some X-Men side characters. Now, question. There hasn't been a Wolverine game in a long time. Yes?
The last Wolverine game, I think, was the video game back when the Wolverine movie came out.
Yes, Wolverine movie, not Logan, but the one before that.
When the Wolverine movie came out, that's when they used to put out video games right alongside movies that came out in theaters.
What a time.
That was the last Wolverine game. Now, he's been in a bunch of other games because he's an IP. But
Okay.
Insomniac got hit with ransomware. Whoever the hackers were, they pulled the entire unfinished copy of Wolverine off of their servers, including the entire plot of the game. Including the character list of characters that were set to be included in the game.
Rude.
They also pulled the future slate of the Marvel video games that are being planned and in development.
Okay, I knew something else got leaked, but I couldn't remember what. It was the future slate.
And in more serious, other than them just stealing this game, they also got all of the personal records and information for former and current employees that work at Insomniac.
Yeah, that's the more serious.
Of their personal private information, any transactional information that was left on those servers, medical records, they got their addresses.
Like, this is ransomware. Mm-hmm. I get it. You are hacking a company for their information for ransom. But won't y'all hack somebody that's actually going to do some good for the people?
Student loans.
Hello, Nailnet is
hack the student loan people.
Listen, we not saying that, but we saying that.
I'm saying
without saying
it's
it.
Not a crime. Is it a crime? Okay. Anyway,
it's very
it's
what is
shocking.
I was trying to think of one word that, like,
when I saw this I gasped.
It's just it's just awful to do and it's not just Insomnia probably has a lot of money, and I'm sure people like they're multi-billionaires, millionaires, whatever. Mm-hmm. There are human beings who work on these games for all their lives, all their sweat and tears, and you just take it and you're like, oh, I'm not giving it back until the CEO pays XYZ. Like, I ain't the CEO. Mm-hmm. Give me my work back.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
So to break this down so it's a little bit more digestible to people who don't understand how games are made. So games are made off of what are called engines. What are engines? Engine is just a game term for software. You buy video game making software to create video games. They call them engines. You might have heard Unreal Engine 5.
I feel like
Unreal Engine. That's like the most popular game software out.
Okay.
They make Harry Potter. The Matrix games that they're planning. You can tell a game
I forgot about that game.
So the engine is basically a software you buy that has a bunch of presets in it. It's over the counter.
It's like a ready-made kit.
Yeah, anybody can buy a game engine. Me and you can go half on a game engine.
Oh, really?
Go half on a computer. We can make it. Yeah, you can just buy it. You just you download Adobe. You can get Unreal Engine.
I don't have time for that, but it sounds interesting.
So you can just buy an engine. How you make a game is you buy the engine and you...
But you have to know how to code for that engine.
Sometimes, but most games that are... This is how a lot of indie games get made, basically. They buy an engine, which, like you said, is a starter pack. And character models... little things that you interact with, like chest and things like that, you can buy that online unlicensed, and you just you import it into the game. It's like building a game is almost... This is simplifying it a lot. It's like playing The Sims.
Okay.
You can buy all the little furniture things you need, the mailboxes, the characters, their clothes, and you can just throw that in there
and make your own story out of that.
They have preset walking animations. They have preset fighting animations, climbing, jumping, flying, all of that stuff.
I don't think I knew that.
So it's a lot easier to make a game now than it was then, where it required coding for all of that. People pre-code all these assets, and you can put it into the game.
Gotcha.
So when people downloaded this unfinished copy of Wolverine, the people downloading this you have your regular everyday people who just like downloading stuff off the internet and playing games, don't know what to do with it. But the issue comes into play when you have professional modders who have built entire careers on creating assets and stuff that are put into games. They can take the skeleton of a game and make build an entirely new game.
So this is how when you play like Grand Theft Auto, for example, and somebody makes a mod for the president to be able to be a playable character. Things like that.
Or you've seen videos of people modding Grand Theft Auto and turning the main character into Superman.
Yes.
And they can and they've made it, and they're like, and they'll put it on YouTube like Superman game in development, and they'll have like a demo video, and it's really just Grand Theft Auto
with Superman.
It's really Superman flying around Vice City, laser beaming pedestrians and throwing cars all over the place. So
they do some crazy stuff.
That's what makes it so devastating, is because they can take this little bit of game and somebody can take this and make an entire game out of it just with these assets. They did a Final Fantasy VII remake, and they put it on PlayStation, and it took them 20 years to do it.
Because they had to rebuild it from scratch or something,
Because they deleted the source code, and they had to rebuild that from scratch. If they didn't, all they would have to do is take it, update the character models, and the little things you interact with in the game, and they could release it. So
it's basically like if you built a house from scratch, and you was getting ready to move in, and you found out that somebody else was already living there.
It's basically like if you were in the middle of building a house, and somebody stole it
and finished it, and then put it on the market, and
you poured the cement and put the walls up, right,
and then they put it on the market and sold it for more, and you like, but my house, where am I gonna live?
Right, exactly. So and duplicated it and sold it to everybody. So now everywhere you go, everybody has your house. In a different color or a different style or whatever. So that's devastating. They also got the entire plot of the game. We're not going to cover that because I don't want to contribute to that. But they got the entire plot of the game, missions from start to finish.
I just would be a person who would just, and it seems like some people are like, I'm not going to. I'm sure a lot of people are like, I want to know all of it. I want to see all of it. I'm going to get this mod. But there seems like there's also a subset of people who are like, I'm just going to wait. Or some people were just like, you know what? They're probably going to scrap this. Thanks, guys. Thanks for nothing. Because now they might get rid of it and we won't see any of it.
Because the first worry with that, people that were excited to buy this game and had been following it in development were like, what happens if this game doesn't come out? We just entirely lost what could have been a really good game in a world where a lot of games are crap. So, other additional details that they stole were the character list. There apparently were a couple other playable X-Men characters in this game, like Jean Grey. She was supposed to be a playable character in this game as well. They also got the future slate of Marvel video games going forward. There is an X-Men game, come to find out, that is currently in development, set for a 2030 release.
And they take to
make a good game, it takes a very long time.
I was going to say, they spend so much time making these games that it's just like somebody to just rip it and say, psych, all your 5 years, 8 years of work, we just taking it from you. Bye. So it's crazy.
So just like you hear about VFX workers saying all the time, like, we're being overworked, and it's the same for video game developers. They get overworked and they get taxed, and
it's not a popular industry. No, it's not known for being a very
nice to its employees.
There it is, very nice industry to work in.
So,
which makes this even worse.
Video game developers and programmers say the same thing. They're overtaxed, they're overworked, it's miserable, but they really want to put out this product because they're really passionate about it. Insomniac is not one of those companies. Insomniac is one of the companies that actually takes the time necessary to build out a game without working their employees to exhaustion.
That's good to hear.
So you're getting a good game, and you get the guilt-free pleasure of purchasing a game knowing that it wasn't made with like blood, sweat, and tears
literal
of developers.
Tears. Although this time it actually might be tears for real.
Insomniac does say that they do plan to go forward with the game, and they're hurt by the leaks, but they're not broken, because as the game is developed, new things will come up. They basically got the first draft of the Wolverine game. I would say delay it and change it up. Definitely change that plot. The plot's got to go. You can't release the game with the same plot. You can release the game with the same gameplay and it looking the exact same, because
because other games will have that.
Even though the game was unfinished, you know what it looked like? Remember when the Wolverine movie came out and it got leaked on the internet with all the unfinished CGI and stuff? That's what the Wolverine game looks like.
There was another movie that did it. It was real creepy. But it didn't have CGI finished, so technically that made sense.
That's what the game looks like. You can go on YouTube and watch it, and nobody, even in its unfinished state, it looks good. It moves good. The way Wolverine fights, he uses his claws. He runs like a dog. It's real. It's really good. He can like climb walls and stuff, and the fighting is good. It's like if Hogwarts Legacy was like set in the X-Men universe.
That's a good game.
But nobody's complaining about the way the game looks or functions. People are still excited about it, so they're still gonna make it. But they do need to change that plot.
I hope they catch whoever did it. I hope they pay the price for their crime.
There was a post going around on Twitter about people who were receiving DMCA notices, which are notices that you receive from your cable company whenever you watch or download something illegal or stream something illegal.
Yep.
So those were going out to everybody who downloaded the copy of the game from wherever it was posted. Good. Although, I mean, that's just a necessary thing to do.
Right.
As somebody who has received DMCA requests plenty of times in my college years when I could not afford all of the streaming services necessary to survive
or our
college.
mom got a notice because we were on her internet.
Or our mom got a notice because I wasn't old enough to have my own like name in my cable service.
Right.
I've gotten plenty of those before in the past, and all they do is turn your internet off and make you call and take a pledge to never do it again. And then they turn it right back. It's not like they disconnect it from the pole.
Listen, what they need to do is take the information and send it to Insomniac so they can prosecute people.
But I'm not encouraging. Do not download this. I am not encouraging you to download this because the DMCA thing is the first step in prosecution. Right. That's your warning. If you keep going, they will do something about it.
Listen, who's to say that they won't pass that information along to the necessary people? And didn't the GTA leaker get like 18 years in a hospital prison or something?
Yeah, they put him in a psych ward. Yeah, they put him in a literal
18-year-old kid.
They put him in a literal psych ward
for a game leak. I'm not playing with y'all. I'm not playing that game.
It was some elaborate word explanation that
I think they called it a hospital prison.
They called it a hospital for mental health something. I was like, y'all threw him in a psych ward,
which is like
y'all not fooling anybody.
Was it worth it? I doubt it. I seriously doubt that.
Not even prison, just a psych. I'd rather go to jail.
I don't want to be on house arrest for downloading no game I wasn't supposed to. Just leave it
there. There are movies of people who are committed to psych wards who aren't crazy, and nobody believes them because everybody in the psych ward says they're not crazy. Could you imagine not being insane and being sentenced to a psych ward?
For GTA?
For downloading a video game?
No, thank you.
Insanity.
Not my ministry. Not at all.
So heart goes out to Insomniac. Stay strong. I will buy this game when it comes out because I'm all about superhero stuff. And even though I think the world has gotten entirely too much of Wolverine and there are so many other X-Men to explore, I will buy this just to see the other X-Men.
I was gonna say, now we ain't even got the new versions of Wolverine. You can't be tired yet.
I want the world to understand that there are other things outside of Wolverine.
They act like there's not anything outside of X-Men.
In the world of X-Men and
Fantastic Four,
superpowers,
apparently.
Wolverine is at the bottom.
Like it's the clothes.
Even though we don't need a Storm game, but like there are so many other X-Men out there.
Listen, everybody is stuck on the popular ones that we have been fed that they don't even want to focus. Just like with Avengers, they focus on the ones that they made most popular, and everybody forgets there's 11 other mutants and superheroes out there to fight battles.
But will I be pre-ordering the X-Men game that comes out in 2030 if any of us are still here
on PlayStation 7?
Abso-freaking-lutely.
All right, so that concludes our movie news, and now we're going to get into movie review number 1 for Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. Our first movie review. Our first movie review is for Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. So if the title doesn't alert you to anything obvious, is that there is a part 2 to this movie. It was released on Netflix. Dang it, what is going on?
Netflix.
It was released on Netflix December 22nd, 2023. In our notes, I have 2021 for whatever reason. It came out this year, y'all. Just 2 days ago. It is directed by Zack Snyder. If you are not familiar with his work, he is the director of 300, Watchmen, Superman, the one with Henry Cavill, Batman vs. Superman with Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, Justice League with the same people I just named, and Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa, and Army of the Dead, which was straight to Netflix, but I didn't see that one.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes, I did see Army of the Dead.
Oh,
I did see that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It is starring Sophia Boutella. How do you say his name? Jaimin. Well, I don't know why I never get that right. Jaimin Hansu, Ed
Screen? I think it's Screen.
Ray Fisher and Sir Anthony Hopkins. Runtime is 2 hours and 15 minutes too long. Budget is $166 million, but that includes both parts. So part 1.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that's what.
$166 million to make both movies.
That's why when I was writing this up, I said, that's pretty good.
That's so much context. Continue.
Yeah. Netflix said you can have it, but you can't have too much. Box office is this did get a super duper limited release. I think it only came out in 3 or 4 theaters in LA
and
in
then
New York.
One place out of the country.
And okay, so it had a so limited box office release.
London or something.
They're not reporting it.
Yeah.
And it probably might have been like fan screenings anyway. So
probably
ratings wise, there's no cinema score because it didn't officially come out in a wide release in the box office. It did get a Rotten Tomatoes score though.
It did.
Critics gave it a 23%, and audience score currently right now is sitting at a 69
with 2,000 plus verified.
Right now,
reviews.
I will say it seemed like there was a bit of a battle between the Snyder. What do they call them? Snyder Bros.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder has a fan base that is quite. Listen, y'all, do not get in Apple reviews getting us.
I like Zack Snyder films. I'm a fan of Zack Snyder films.
Sure. There seemed to be, before this movie even came out to be available on theaters, there was some sort of fight between the Zack Snyder bros and the people who are anti-Zack Snyder because it had a audience rating before the movie came out. So are all these ratings actually like people who saw the movie? I do not know.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say whoever was trying to review bomb, it's not really going one way or the other because 69 is not.
It's not good.
It's not good. It's also not a 23.
If they got positive review bombing, this is not good. If they got negative review bombing, this is also not good because it's not bad enough to be considered a horrible audience score movie.
You know, 2 movies that did get review bombed and you can tell: Captain Marvel, the first one, and Black Panther. They had to actually change how they did Rotten Tomato verified reviews because of the review bombing for both of those movies was so bad.
So the reviewing for Rebel Moon, I think there was no review bombing that took place here.
I don't think so.
No.
Correct. I don't think so. I think 69 is what it is. 23 obviously are critics, so they don't review bomb their own critic movies. Mm-hmm. And that's where the ratings are. We just watched this movie 2 hours ago. Mm-hmm. It's fresh on our mind. Do you want to summarize the plot? So we're not going to run down the whole 2 hours and 15 minutes because you're going to get the gist of the movie going through our review. But do you at least want to summarize the plot of part 1
So
of
I
this
will
movie.
read the synopsis.
Okay, fair enough.
On Rebel Moon as it is explained in the wiki.
Part 1, just part 1.
Part 1, Rebel Moon, Part 1, A Child of Fire.
So long of a title.
It is set in a fictional galaxy ruled by the Mother World, whose military, the Imperium, threatens a farming colony on the moon, Veld. Korra, a former Imperium soldier, ventures on a quest to recruit warriors from across the galaxy to make a stand against the Imperium before they return to Veld.
Thank you for reading that because
Veld is the name of the moon. Veld is the name of the rebel moon.
I was gonna say I didn't realize that until just now in the movie.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I was like,
they had some Veld title cards
in the movie. Right, in the movie, they hop from place to place to place, and every place they hop, there's a title card. And I was just kind of like, y'all.
And they hop to about 15 different places.
Y'all gonna expect me to remember all of this?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way. So thank you for the recap of what was what in terms of planets.
My pleasure.
So let's talk about the actors and actresses in this movie.
Sure.
You have a favorite or least favorite? Who did a good job? Who didn't do as good of a job? Who did you want more from?
Who did a good job in the movie?
Yes, this movie in particular.
I think the person who did the best job was Charlie Hunnam.
Who was he?
Charlie Hunnam played Kai, who was the Han Solo character.
Okay. Oh, really? Oh, okay, fair.
Even though he was not my favorite character.
Okay.
I do think that he did.
He portrayed his character the best.
When you put all the cast together, he was not my favorite character, but he portrayed the character the best.
Okay.
He was the best actor.
Okay. I can see that. He definitely gave me. You know what? He was almost like if he really would have put a little into it, he could have been like the Grant Ward of this movie. Almost.
There was potential there. Sure.
Almost doesn't count.
Yeah.
But almost.
Grant Ward is in a league of his own.
Listen, okay, brief sidetrack.
Cycling back to MCU villains.
Yes.
Grant Ward is a Thanos level villain.
Grant Ward is a villain from
Agents of
S.H.I.E.L.D. And I didn't even watch all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. from start to finish. But the episodes and seasons that I watched were Grant Ward. He was a villain that like never died. And no matter what incarnation they brought him in, you was like, God dang it, it is Grant Ward again.
Even when he did die, they brought him back as a different villain who was using his corpse.
Yes. Yes. So Grant Ward was a good villain because he was a good at being bad.
You wanted him to die so bad.
Yes. And this character, Kai, in this movie, I would give you that. He was very much that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, is that a spoiler?
Who cares?
Okay. Okay, so we're going to just spoil this movie. We're not doing a pre-spoiler, no spoiler. We're just going to...
There's not too much to spoil, really.
That's true.
The Charlie Hunnam thing is like the only kind of pre-spoilery thing.
Yeah, I'll put it in our notes.
Can happen.
I'll put it in our notes that we didn't really divide up the spoiler and non-spoiler so people know.
I mean, we can cut out that whole part.
I can say keep it.
So, but anyway, that was my favorite character. Even though he wasn't my favorite character, he was the best character.
Okay.
What was yours?
The actress, I'm trying to look up her name, who played Nemesis, was my favorite. I mean...
Duna Bay.
Duna Bay. I liked her. She didn't have a ton of speaking parts. She's not even in the whole movie. But out of all the people... This was like a Magnificent Seven movie, so it's a get the team together movie, right? So out of the get the team together, she was the most favorite. Right. And you know what? I would change my answer then. I'll agree. I'll go in with you on that. Okay. Duna Bay Nemesis was my favorite character. Now, I won't say that Sophia did a bad job. I think she did the best with what she was given, and what she was given was a hodgepodge of a lot. This movie was said to be Zack Snyder's pitch to do a Star Wars movie, and it is written. And Star Wars said no, or Lucasfilms or Disney, whoever at the time, said no, thank you. And they held on to this and were like, we're just gonna maybe potentially make it somewhere else. And they got the chance via Netflix, and you can absolutely tell from start to finish. This used to be a Star Wars movie. This was pitched as a Star Wars movie. And why Lucasfilm was like, No, sir.
No.
You're not doing that here.
Absolutely not.
It's just very
This reminds me of somebody who asked, I was watching a video, a panel, and somebody had asked a comic book writer, if you want to get into comic books, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to write a comic book for the first time?
Okay.
And their advice was, come with your own original idea.
Okay.
Don't pitch to a comic book writer. They basically were like, if you want to be a comic book writer, don't pitch a Batman comic book to a person who writes Batman comics. Come with your own idea,
like a fresh take.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't pitch to somebody like, I want to make a Batman movie. Here's my take on Batman, to somebody who makes Batman movies, because it's like, I'm not going to help you do
what I've already done. It gives. I hate to say it this way, but it gives very Star Wars reject. The whole movie.
It is. The movie kind of felt like a hodgepodge of ideas that were scrapped, and not all of them were necessarily bad, but they all just seemed like things that were considered to be put in Star Wars movies, but because it did not flow with what they wanted to do with Star Wars,
right? I don't even know where this would have fit, because it's very much.
I mean, a lot of it is Star Wars,
right? Right. It's basically a lot of pieces of Star Wars. It's even got an MCU little bit in here.
And it's not from all the same Star Wars. This is pieces of a lot of different Star Wars.
So I don't even know where this, and I don't know when he pitched this and what movies was out at that point.
And a little bit of Mandalorian.
And what movies weren't out at that point. But I don't even know where this would have fit in Star Wars, because there's so many pieces of other like, they couldn't have done this here because they already did this here, and they couldn't have done this here because they already did this here.
Or it was like you're putting things from A New Hope and Return of the Jedi in the same movie, where it doesn't make sense, because the reason those were in separate movies is because these are separate storylines,
and they already happened. So why would we want a movie?
They're doing Phantom Menace and New Hope things at the same time and in the same place, and it's like, this is weird, because some of this kind of Phantom Menace and A New Hope, in certain sections of both of those movies, it's very similar. Specifically, the Tatooine moments. You're doing Tatooine New Hope and doing Tatooine Phantom Menace in the same movie, and it's like,
but they're from two different times.
This is strange. Did I just watch the same scene again with two different people? Like,
like you're rehashing what's already been rehashed. Yeah, rehash it again.
It was a very interesting experience. I will say that.
Is that what you would call it?
I would call it an interesting experience, watching a mashup of Star Wars films, if you put them all in a blender.
Yeah,
I think that was interesting.
I was more frustrated.
Not good, but interesting.
I was frustrated at some of the. So we're not doing spoilers or non-spoilers. We're just gonna jump into everything.
Talking about the movie,
right? Because we're gonna get into talking about what we liked and what we didn't like. I did not like some of the decisions, and it almost was frustrating. Like, I'll just skip. I'm jumping to the end here, but Ray Fisher is in this movie as a character called Blood Axe.
He's one of the Blood Axe siblings,
right? And the Blood Axe are the renegade rebels that have been.
Yeah, they're like these legendary mercenaries that are fighting for revolution.
And the Imperium people are trying to find them.
And that's the whole plot of the movie,
right? They're trying to find these, and the Imperial people, if you didn't know. By summarizing of the plot, they are bad. So think of the Empire in Star Wars, the bad people, the Stormtrooper people. They are looking for Ray Fisher and his fam. So we find Ray Fisher. I don't know, maybe the last third, maybe like hour 45 into the movie, we finally get to Ray Fisher.
Yeah, okay. Out of a 2 hour and 15-minute movie,
and by hour 2 and 05, Ray Fisher is dead.
He is dead.
And I'm kind of like...
The plot of this movie are the heroes looking for Ray Fisher and the villains looking for Ray Fisher and racing to get to Ray Fisher at the same time. And they get Ray Fisher and kill him.
I don't understand why Ray Fisher was like, sure, I'll sign up for this. I don't get that. And I was frustrated.
Zack Snyder and Ray Fisher were supposed to be like best friends. So why would your best friend put you in this movie and kill you off so easily, knowing that there's like a whole part 2 and another franchise that's supposed to be spawned out of
that
this?
Was frustrating to me. The other thing that frustrates me about Zack Snyder movies in general, you always have to have some sort of sexual assaults.
Yeah, there's always some type of sexual assault in
weird, unnecessary sexual part of the movie.
There was rape in 300. There was rape in Wanted. I'm sorry, Watchmen. There
was, in this movie, it's PG-13, so they don't go full all out showing anything. There was sexual assault and
Sucker Punch. Like, he loves putting that in his movies.
It just is, as with most of his movies that have this, it's unnecessary to the plot. So the bad guys are about to gang rape one of the characters, and the Cora stops them. But in my opinion, like, you could have just had, it was obvious that the bad guys were bullies and mean, and they were going to treat these village people horribly. Like, we got the gist. They didn't need to add that into the plot. Say, oh, they're really horrible because they're about to do this. No, they were already horrible. We don't need to add this part of the movie to justify her killing all these bad guys. Like, and the thing it's justified them showing up.
It was like implied from the moment the girl got on screen that they were going to assault her, and then they just drag it on and drag it until they finally get to it. Through a couple of scenes, right? And they finally get to it, and they drag the scene on of them like these dudes like capturing her and talking about in graphic detail all the things they're going to do to her.
Added nothing to the plot.
He loves doing that.
So that was frustrating. And then we get another scene of a male character who is propositioned by another male character. He's like, oh, everybody's for sale, and they're like, no, this ain't that type of party. He's like, no, like, I'm gonna do what I want to do with you.
And then he sexual assaults a different character.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, why did we have to? So those were some frustrating parts. I think that's one of Zack
Snyder's favorite things, is to include some type of unwanted sexual assault in any movie he makes.
That was one thing I didn't like. Another thing I didn't like was the slow-mo shots. He's very famous for the slow-mo shots, but these particular slow-mo shots, nothing really happened.
Yeah, that was strange because he is known for his slow-mo. That's like the thing. When you hear Zack Snyder, you know you're going to hear slow-mo set to some mic drops.
There you go.
And there were no mic drops in this movie.
Sure.
But but usually in his slow-mo, there's something epic happening when it's going
somebody's
slow-mo.
Getting stabbed, somebody's head getting cut off, somebody's eye getting ripped out, somebody falling down some stairs. This time the slow-mo would be me walking down the street.
Huddling behind a wall.
Yeah, just huddle.
Yeah.
Just sitting there waiting. It's like, is something going to blow up?
Slow-mo on a scene of somebody running when they're clearly not going, they're clearly fake running. So it's like you got us watching somebody slowly do fake running.
Yeah, there's a scene where Ray Fisher character runs and he's taking like baby steps. And I'm like,
it's in slow-mo.
Sir, you are I don't know how tall Ray Fisher is, but obviously his stride is probably pretty wide.
Yeah.
Why are you running like you a toddler?
Yeah, Ray Fisher
in slow motion.
Ray Fisher is a giant, and when he runs, his strides are about
the spacing should be pretty wide, but it's clearly they were like on a set, and the beam that they built was only so far, so he kind of had.
He was only running like
take it slow,
a foot per stride in his run, which was weird. But yeah, he had an equal amount of slow mo that he does in all his stuff, except the shots that he chose to do slow mo were all shots of nothing.
Yeah,
things that I did not like. I did not like the space portals, which was the very first shot of the film.
Yeah, the space portal looks like something else.
The space portals look like a lesson in anatomy that does not need to be shown.
That is not PG-13. I'll tell you that much. I was like, this look weird, and this don't look like something that should be in this movie.
I was actually a little embarrassed.
I don't know if that was on purpose or not, or that was kind of just like him being
it made a sound when it. I was just like,
I don't know if he was being like cheeky there. I'm just like, Zack, what you doing?
The first scene, we see a space portal, and the way the space portal looks and opens, I was like, we're watching a Zack Snyder film, baby. We're in it.
I'm glad they only did that once.
That was my first.
Because if that was like jump points, like it is in any like MCU movie, you know how to do like the jump points, and if they did them portals like that in this movie, I would have to turn it off.
Yeah, they would have had to go to an NC-17 rating.
Exactly.
So the space portals, my first note was space portals are gross.
Yep, I agree with you there.
The overall writing, all the dialogue was bad. There was no good dialogue in the whole movie.
It gave me very much reading off the paper.
And it said it was written and the story was by Zack Snyder. So, I mean, he gets the credit for that. All the dialogue was terrible. It was the things that they were saying to each other directly. There's a scene when they go to recruit Nemesis, and at the end of that scene, she basically gives him a lesson about, don't do revenge because this can easily happen. You could easily be killed in the name of revenge.
Yeah.
And immediately to recruit the next person, they recruit him by saying, don't you want to get revenge against the Empire? And I was like, this directly contradicts. What was the point of this poignant lesson from
Right.
Nemesis
that was supposed to be like
that was
supposed to be like the punchline, like, ooh, profound.
I didn't like most of the characters because they were kind of just hollow and they didn't get enough time to do anything with.
We definitely did not get enough time with each character.
I will say that Jaimin Hansu, who is one of the main characters in this movie, did say he said you don't learn who the characters are until part 2.
Did not.
In the 2 hour and 15 minute movie, you won't. So don't go into the movie if you're going to watch it. The stars literally said you are not going to know who these characters are until you watch part 2, which comes out next year. So
he was right. He ain't lie.
Yeah.
He ain't lie.
So don't worry about going in and being like, oh, I just don't feel like I know these characters.
You're not supposed to.
It's
apparently.
by design. You're not supposed to.
Don't like.
According to the act, this is not us. This is a direct quote from actors doing their own press for the film.
Do not recommend doing that in future movies.
If you want to say that sounds ridiculous, tell that to the actors. And I thought the fight choreo was all bad.
So the fights, now we know these people are not stabbing each other for real and punching each other for real. Like, we know that. That's how movies are made. But it should look like it.
So, and I think I have a theory on why the fight choreo was bad. Because I don't think they had stunt people for any of the actors.
So they literally could not punch each other.
Yeah, so it's like if you told Scarlett Johansson that she has to perform all her own Black Widow stunts, and she's like, "Are you joking?" So, I don't think they use stunt people for the actors in this movie. I think all of the villains were stunt people because a lot of them were like aliens or had masks on.
Okay,
you couldn't really see them. But I think all of the actors did all their own stunts, and that is why the choreo was so bad.
It looked like like the punches weren't landing.
They didn't have impact.
And somebody would get like stabbed, but you wouldn't really see them get stabbed. You would just kind of like the cut was just enough to where you see it, but you don't see it.
Like they would cut the knife out of the shots.
Yeah, there it is.
Whenever they use knives.
Mm-hmm.
All of the shootouts were fine. All of the gunplay was fine because that's easy to do.
Yeah.
But all of the punches and the kicks and all
like
of that,
the hand-to-hand combat was a little weak.
And the slow-mo kind of made it worse because it made it more noticeable that these punches and these kicks were fake.
Yeah.
There was no impact or anything.
There was no blood, and I'm assuming that's because it was PG-13. But they at least need, like, if you slit somebody's throat, and you need to see something.
Yeah.
Like something's coming out.
There was no blood, which is weird because you can be PG-13 and not be bloodless. Like you can have plenty of blood in PG-13.
Maybe at the final fight we saw some blood.
There was plenty of blood that was in Aquaman.
Yeah.
And that was a PG-13 film. So I thought the no blood was a choice.
It had to be a choice. Maybe Netflix PG-13
there wasn't even like
CGI
blood splatter or anything.
I think maybe at the end when they were fighting there might have been something on somebody's shirt.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, you're right. The fights were not great.
I thought some of the planets were good. Some of the planetary design was interesting. I can't tell you any of the names of the planets, but there was...
Yeah, I said I was not keeping track of all of that.
There was a planet that I said reminded me of Coruscant.
There it is.
There was a planet that looked like Coruscant if it was a mining planet. If Coruscant was a mining planet, because Coruscant was like all these packed in gold buildings, and then at night it looked like a futuristic New York. That's kind of what the planet looked like. But
with a dusty filter over it.
If they were doing mining, there was a really rocky mountainous planet that had like these spike mountains that they flew around and flew through. I thought that was really good. So I thought some of the planets were interesting. Planetary design was interesting.
You like some of the cinematography maybe?
No.
Oh. For
the cinematography, all of the scenes were like super crushed and super saturated. The reds were super saturated.
Yes.
There weren't any I can remember night scenes. Everything was in the daytime.
It was either daytime or raining.
Yeah, I don't think there was any night. Maybe there was night. There was night in the last scene of the film, the last fight.
Oh yeah,
the third
very
act,
last.
But it was like super bright.
Right.
And I thought some of the shots were too close on some of the people's faces.
I thought the close-up shots, the background looked too fake. Like it's almost as if we could tell that they were on some sort of green screen, and they kind of did some Microsoft Paint with the back. I didn't understand that. I think that was supposed to be the look, but to me, it didn't look good.
They did a lot of close up on the faces of the actors shots where the background is fake, clearly, but
out of focus.
They put it out of focus, so it looked even
out
worse.
Of focus.
It kind of looked like the background was like a watercolor painting in some shots.
Microsoft Paint.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know if they used a volume for that or just good old green screen. But
no volume involved in this.
I think the reason it looked worse than the volume because I think the volume is never out of focus.
Listen, they made the Mandalorian in the volume, and there's no way these were made in the same way.
The backgrounds were very weird.
It felt like it was intentional because every close-up shot had that background of like
they
haze.
CGI'd the background behind them,
just hazy. I'm just like, what are y'all doing? It was hard
to remember the things that you liked because you didn't spend too much. You jumped around to so many different places and planets in this movie. Which, if you're saying like, oh, it's a Star Wars movie, you're supposed to do that. Star Wars spends a little bit more time in some of these places.
Yeah, well,
some of these worlds.
My biggest thing was we're picking up all these people. We pick up, I don't know, maybe like 6, 5. I don't know. I'm not counting. Multiple people, and we meet the person. The person is in some sort of like trial or tribulation. They got to work through whatever trial. It takes 5 minutes for them to get out of this extremely dire situation. Like one guy is a slave and he has to, in order to get him free, they don't have the money. So he's like, his slave master is basically like, well, if you tame this hippogriff, then I will let him free. He does it in like 5 minutes. And
then it begs the question of why was he
Why
working
didn't he
as
do
a slave
earlier?
when the only thing he needed to do was be free was to tame this bird? Because he did that instantly.
He could, and we find out that the dude at the end of the movie is a prince. We don't know
of some planet
of
that
who?
we have not been on.
We don't know how he got from being a prince to a slave. We just it's just exposition.
And they don't explain it either. He never talks about it. He never addresses
Don't bring it up or nothing.
That he's a prince, and nobody, once it's revealed, the rest of the cast is like, so you're a prince.
Okay. Cool.
How can you and your lineage, your royal lineage, assist us in the war effort? We're not going to ask. Because we didn't hire you because you were a prince. We hired you because you were a slave. That makes zero sense.
That scene, that whole thing was like 5 minutes. The mention of him being a prince was 3 seconds. When they go to get Nemesis, she's trying to free a child from this humanoid spider thingy.
Spider lady.
That she takes care of that in about 3 minutes. And then they go to the next person and they go get whoever they go get next. It takes about 2 minutes to free that person for whatever tribulation they are in.
Maybe it's when they go back in time to the movie Gladiator to get Jaime Hansu.
We go to Gladiator for 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5
Gladiator
seconds,
world,
whatever. And it's just kind of like and apparently he's like this bomb general from back in the day.
He's a genius. We find out at the end he is a genius strategist in general.
Right. He's Napoleon basically. And now Napoleon is looking like a homeless man outside of the Coliseum, and he likes to fight because he's guilty about something. We don't know what.
All of his men got killed.
Yeah. We don't have any backstory to any of these things. We just go get the person, fix their problem in a couple minutes, and now they're part of the crew. And it's just kind of like, y'all, I would have preferred the movie to be about the backstories of the different characters.
So let's just go down our notes and we can go down our favorite notes.
Okay, give me that.
So next note I have on my list is that Thanos and Gamora.
Yep.
So there is one of the storylines in this movie is Cora, who is played by Sofia Boutella, who is the main character, is the adoptive daughter of the villain of this movie.
Sound familiar?
Whose name is Barnabas?
Benedictus?
Bellacarrius?
Bella. We'll just call him Bella for short.
Thanos. Her dad is Thanos.
Her dad is Thanos. A human Thanos.
When Thanos came to Cora's planet to enslave all of its people,
instead of snapping everybody in half or just killing half of people,
he killed everybody on her planet and took her in as a daughter because she was a little girl, but she was a little girl with the strength to stand up to him. So he took her under his wing as his progeny, and he trained her as a soldier, just like Thanos trained Gamora.
Literally the same thing.
And eventually she went rogue
at some point. We don't know when.
Went on the run and went into
just
hiding.
Just like Gamora.
And just like Thanos in Avengers, he is sending out his Black Order
to
find her and bring her back to him. That is her main storyline.
That is her main storyline. It's literally ripped from the MCU.
And I'm sure Thanos and Gamora are not the first people to do this, but they are the most successful people to do this because it is one of the highest grossing films of all time.
I'm like, if you're going to rip something from something that's been done, don't do it from $1 billion movie. Yeah.
They didn't do it first, but they did it the best. And if you don't agree with that, look at the scoreboard.
Speaking of things that are ripped from other things, so we already talked about how this movie was a Star Wars pitch.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little bit of Han Solo. You already mentioned that.
That's my next note. Yeah.
One character is literally Irish Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
Like they go find him, or they don't even go find him. They go looking for somebody else. And he's like, oh, hey, don't you need a ship to go somewhere? And they're like, yes, we do need a ship. Boom, Han Solo.
So my next note is, we're at Mos Eisley Spaceport. So after the Empire visits Korra's village and tell them the plans to take over everything and eradicate the people.
Yes.
Korra takes herself. Korra is Obi-Wan.
Yes.
She takes Luke Skywalker, who is not special or powerful anyway. He's just a grain farmer.
Yes.
Korra, Obi-Wan, and Luke Skywalker. I don't remember what this dude's name is, but they go to Mos Eisley Spaceport to find people who can assist them in their rebellion effort against the Empire. So they go to Mos Eisley Spaceport. The Luke Skywalker character gets sexually assaulted by some random dude at the bar.
Right, what we mentioned earlier.
And Korra beats him up and kills him.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just like...
And all his goons that show up later.
Kind of just like in Star Wars A New Hope when the guy at the bar got really rough with Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan sliced his arm off and then they got into a bar fight. It was the exact same scene, just with some slow motion and updated visual effects.
Were they update? I guess.
After the bar fight shootout, they meet Han Solo, who's played by Charlie Hunnam, who is also at this bar.
Yeah.
And Han Solo says, you guys need to get off the planet to get away from the Empire. I have a ship. And they literally hop in the Millennium Falcon and they fly off the planet. That's literally what happens.
My note here just says Han Solo, but you summed it up pretty much how I would have.
And just like Obi-Wan, she asks him, are you a bounty hunter? He says, no, I'm not a bounty hunter. I don't like bounty hunters. He's actually on the run from bounty hunters, just like Han Solo was on the run from Jabba the Hutt and Boba Fett.
Yep. That's it.
It's the exact same.
Ripped from the Star Wars universe. I have another note that says Anakin Skywalker, but I can't remember which part of the movie that was for.
Yeah, so after they leave Tatooine 1, they go to Tatooine 2, where they run into the prince.
Oh, yeah.
Who is
there it is. There's my Anakin Skywalker reference because the prince, we didn't know, because he's the chosen one, obviously, at some point, because he was a prince. And they have to get the prince from the slave driver. I was like, oh, that's just like in Star Wars where they had to go get Anakin from his slave owner. And they had to do like some sort of, trial and tribulation to free him.
That's exactly what it is. So they go to the next island. They go to the next planet that's basically
Island would have been better.
They go to Tatooine 2. So we're leaving A New Hope. We're going into the Phantom Menace. We're going to Tatooine.
Yep.
We find a slave who is a prince.
We don't know that yet, though.
We don't know that yet, but he is the chosen one because he's
a
prince, and we don't know that. And they have to negotiate with Watto.
Yep.
In order to get him free. And Watto says, I don't want your money. The only way he can go free is if he takes this hippogriff
from Harry Potter
that we haven't been able to tame. If he can tame this hippogriff and get it to fly, he can fly off with Qui-Gon Jinn and go fight the Empire.
Exactly.
So Anakin goes out there to talk to the hippogriff.
It works.
And it works because he talks
hippogriff.
He speaks in some kind of language that isn't English,
right?
And talks to the hippogriff and calms it down. He bows. The hippogriff bows back.
He tames it,
climbs on his back, and they go for a fly.
And if you don't know what a hippogriff is, that is from Harry Potter. So he picked up a Harry Potter reference. So we got Marvel, Star Wars, obviously, Harry Potter. There is a little bit of Matrix in this. At the very end, the villain gets dumped into some goo with some cords attached to him, and it literally looks like when they brought Neo out of the Matrix.
Yes.
not scene for scene or cut for cut.
They strip him naked. They put all these tubes on him.
Lots of tubes.
In his body. They put him in this water bubble, just like they have in this amniotic red. Fluid, just like they have all red. Of the people who are still sleeping in the Matrix. The color's red.
And he gets brought back to life. It also is a little bit of how they turned Anakin into Vader as well. A little bit. That scene kind of gave me that a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, actually.
When they have to like revitalize, because Anakin was all chopped up and whatnot.
So my next note is the director's cut gonna include an extended hippogriff flying scene? Because it's supposed to be a director's cut that's like 4 hours and rated R.
I think it's like 3 hours and 13 minutes.
Because as I was watching it, I was like, I wonder what they cut to get this down to 2 hours and 15 minutes. Like maybe they cut more hippogriff flying scenes out. I'm
sure there was more slow motion. I'm sure there was more flying scenes. I bet you there's a scene of the sexual assault like fully probably played out.
Yeah.
If I had to guess. Anything that was probably gross and overdone is probably more gross and overdone in the extended cut.
Do you have another note?
Let me see. What else I got? Ray Fisher dying was stupid was my second to last note.
I have a follow-up note for that as well.
Okay. Oh, I have a good one after this. Go ahead.
Because the main plot of this movie is the Empire and the good guys, the Republic, are looking for the Blood Axes. They're these siblings that are known for their military cunning, and they are leading a revolution. They're very clearly important because the military the Empire has sent their best gunship out
to go find
look
them.
For these two people. They're known as the Blood Axes. They are leading a revolution against the Empire. They finally catch up to the Blood Axes. Ray Fisher and his sister. And they say, hey, we came all across the galaxy looking for you guys to come back to our moon and help us fight the Empire. And the Blood Axes are like, we don't have enough people to fight the Empire ourselves, so we definitely don't have the troops to spare. But we'll go with you anyway because the plot demands it.
Only some, though.
Only some. So only Ray Fisher goes, and he takes a handful of his troops with him and leaves the rest with his sister to continue the fight.
Somewhere.
The plan is not to go die, but that's what he goes
That's literally what happens 10 minutes later.
But prior to that, my next note is when they go to get Nemesis. And we have the Nemesis scene. So every time they go to a planet to get a character, the character has to have like at least a 5-minute scene to show us what they are capable of and how they contribute. Right. Yeah. So they go to Nemesis, and Nemesis has robot hands, and she has
2 lightsabers.
Yeah, basically.
She got lightsabers.
She got 2 heat-up swords.
She got 2. They're lightsabers. Don't call them anything else.
They go to get her, and she's fighting a giant spider lady who has like a human body, a human torso with. She's like a centaur, but for spiders. Yeah. And instead of now, this spider's trying to kill this girl, and the spider is also trying to kill Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
And instead of any of the people helping, they kind of just watch.
Yes. They watch this, 3-minute fight.
Y'all decide not to help her. She's getting stabbed. She's in actual peril. The spider is literally about to kill the grain farmer, Luke Skywalker, that you need.
And there's a child in danger amongst all of this.
Yeah, he's the one contact you guys have to the Blood Axes, and he's also going to be killed. And they all just kind of sit and watch. They're watching like they're also the audience.
When the fight was over, none of them were there. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah.
The girl's mom was still left. And I was like, well, where'd everybody else go? Nobody wanted to see how this ended?
They just disappeared from the shot.
All right.
I thought that was weird. You want to go next with your next note?
My other note is the B word transcends space, time, and universes.
Oh, yeah. You can be a B no matter where you are.
I was just kind of like, y'all could have thought of another word, been creative with it to come up with some sort of insult. Why is the B word always the word that we got to call women in every universe and generation of every space movie? But whatever.
That is Zack Snyder's thing.
And then my other note says this is Dollar General Dune. Yeah.
I wouldn't even call this Dune.
Well, Dune is similar to Dune. Dune was a better movie. Dune Part 1, nothing really happened. And that's everybody's biggest complaint about Dune Part 1 is where was the turn up?
Dune was at least pretty.
Dune was
pretty to look at.
Beautiful gowns for sure, but overall, not a whole ton happened in Dune Part 1, and overall, not a ton happened in this Part 1 of this movie. Yeah, in my opinion.
My last note that I'll say is that I was confused by the term seasons in this movie.
Yeah.
So in Star Wars, I think they use cycles or years, and as a measure of time.
Yeah.
A unit of time across when you have a movie where you're jumping from planet to planet, you have to have a universal measure of time so that everybody can understand what they say when they say like something happened days or years ago or something's going to happen tomorrow. You have to have a universal measure of time.
Right.
They use seasons in this movie. Instead of saying years or days, they said, I haven't seen somebody in 2 seasons. Right. Or no, Star Wars, they use parsecs, which is also incorrect because parsecs is not a measure of time. It's a measure of distance. Anyway,
it's space.
They say seasons, but they don't say how long a season is. And I was very confused because according to science, all planets have different seasons because planets rotate around whatever their sun is at different rates of speed. So when you go, a moon winter is not an Earth winter.
Right.
Or a Venus winter or a Venus summer.
A Jupiter, Venus, Mars. They all different.
You can't, like, if there was planetary life on Venus and we could go to Venus and we went to Venus to visit our cousins and we were like, we haven't seen you in a summer. And they would be like, you haven't seen us in 12 years? Because it's not the same. Seasons don't work the same on every planet.
When the movie opens, Cora says, or somebody says that she's been where she is for 2 seasons. And I'm like, so like spring and winter? What is that? Is that a long time? Is that a little time? Because 2 seasons to me don't really sound that long.
You could leave a planet in winter and go to another planet and it'd be summer. And they'd be like, how long did it take you to get here? A season. And you'll be like, okay, so it took you all of spring to get here. And it's like, no, I left in the winter. So it's not the same.
It's not even the same on Earth. Like a winter here is not the same winter in Africa. Like it's different.
Yeah, it's like if it's winter here and we leave here and we go to Japan and it'd be like, well, how long did it take you to get here? A season. That doesn't make any sense.
You're right.
There are things, I feel like these are things you should know if you're telling a space movie.
There's small details that throw off the plot, for sure.
Yeah, so in summation, John Carter of Mars was a good movie. This has been proven. Because this was awful.
Yeah, it wasn't. I actually agree with the critic score. And I typically don't. Because critic scores don't. I don't really care what critics say. Like, we doing a podcast, so we'll say what the critics give it as a percentage. But more likely than not, it's just kind of a gauge of what they think a movie should be. And normally the audience score never matches anyway. But I would agree. I would 23 sound about right.
Critics are human.
Yes.
And that means they have the capacity to be very unfair.
Right.
Especially when it's a director who has a history of not making good films. Zack Snyder, I enjoy 95% of Zack Snyder's films. This is definitely in the 5%. But I do know that even though I enjoy Zack Snyder films, Zack Snyder does not make good movies. Man of Steel was a good movie.
I liked Man of Steel.
300 was a good movie.
I like 300. I didn't like the sequel.
Batman versus Superman was a bad movie.
No.
Zack Snyder's Justice League was a bad movie.
But I've seen it 12 times.
All of those movies that exactly. All of those movies that I've listed, I've seen 5,000 times because there are things that I enjoy. I did not enjoy this. I didn't enjoy this at all.
You won't catch me rewatching this ever in any lifetime in any universe.
And like you said, with the audience scores, I am typically one of the people that when I see a critic score, I'm like, okay, this is what the critics think. And that's all I think of it. And then I see the audience score and then I make
a little more gauge of what.
Then I gauge my expectations based on a comparison between critics and audiences.
Yes.
Unfortunately, an audience score. These are, if we're at the point of, if you want to see a Zack Snyder movie, it's because you like Zack Snyder movies.
Right.
Zack Snyder has made enough movies where he's not gaining new fans. If you're seeing a Zack Snyder movie, you are people who see Zack Snyder movies loyally.
Or you're doing a podcast.
So for 2,000 plus people to give it a 69%, and I'm going to assume most of these people are Zack Snyder fans who appreciate his movies.
Or like movies,
don't like this movie very much. So that's telling.
It's not great. I wouldn't recommend this movie to anyone.
I think that there are some internal discussions that need to be had at Netflix about who gets to make the decisions of what movie deals we give out to these directors and why.
Listen, the interesting part, no matter what the reception of this part 1 is, part 2 already done. There's no changing it.
Because
there's no tweaking.
We have people who grill A New Hope. I'm sorry, not A New Hope. We have people who grill the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, the Rey saga.
Okay.
And they grill it just for the simple fact that it had the audacity to put a woman in the center. But
I don't like that.
They grill it and say it's the worst thing possible because they had the nerve to put a woman in the center and give her and make her super powerful without explaining it.
Right.
And they did the exact same thing here.
Was she super powerful though?
No. Okay. She was even less useful than Rey.
Yeah. That's why I said Nemesis was my favorite, because at least she had the lightsabers.
This movie doesn't get a pass just because the guy that made it likes to make edgy movies that... No.
If you like Zack Snyder, you'll probably like this movie, and that's probably the only people who like this movie.
I like Zack Snyder films, and I did not like this movie.
If you are a Snyder bro, you're not a Snyder bro, so you don't
I'm
fit.
Not.
You don't fit in that mold. Snyder bros probably like this movie. I don't recommend it. I don't even recommend streaming it.
Yeah, I don't even think anybody this was a 2 hour and 15-minute waste of time. This was this was not a good movie in any sense of and it was kind of sad because at least Zack Snyder movies have production value. Zack Snyder is good.
No, this didn't
Zack Snyder is good with visuals.
Yeah, I really liked how 300 looked. I like how Man of Steel looked.
Man of Steel's visuals were crazy.
I really like how Man of Steel, even though I didn't like 300, the sequel or the prequel or whatever it was, as much, it still looked good.
He really does cinematography really well. I'll give him that in some of his stuff. He does special... Sucker Punch had really, really good special effects.
The Watchmen had an interesting cinematography. Didn't like that movie, but
shots were great.
Looks wise, it looked good.
And I don't know if this is I'm not going to say it's all because he had a lower budget. We've seen The Creator.
Hello.
So having a lower budget excuse is gone, unfortunately. Nobody saw The Creator, but The Creator looked amazing.
It did. I think it's on
$4.
I think it's on the short list for visuals for the Oscars.
Yeah, and The Creator cost $4.97 to make.
And unfortunately, only $2 worth of people went to go see it.
Exactly. So that's our final verdict on Rebel Moon.
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess there's nobody we would recommend.
Yeah,
Did you have a favorite line or scene?
No. I didn't. I couldn't even find anything I liked about this movie. So picking a favorite.
I'm thinking of something. We're going to cut out this silence. Final words about the movie.
Don't bother. I'm sorry. Don't bother. I hate to say that about a movie because I know there's so many people behind the scenes of a movie who worked really hard on this, but I don't recommend it.
Yeah. So last week at the end of the episode, we said we were going to do predictions about what we thought how we thought if the film was going to be good or not.
Yeah.
Based on the trailers and everything we know about the film, we gave a 0 out of 5 predicted rating on it.
Okay.
And it's not like a rating. We're not rating this movie.
We're not critics.
But
we're not professional critics.
We're just having fun with the numbers.
They're right.
So you predicted that you would give it a 3 out of 5. Has that changed?
Yes.
What is your score now?
2.
You give it a 2 out of 5.
It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but I never want to see it again.
It's not worse than The Room.
The who?
That Tommy Wiseau film.
What movie is that?
Yeah, it's bad.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a worse. No, I'm not going to bother. 2 out of 5. I'm changing it. So it's
not worse than any of the Fantastic Beasts movies.
It didn't meet.
Well, it is worse than those movies.
Oh, it ain't worse than that second one.
Ooh, that second one. Anyway, that second one was bad. But the second one had a scene kind of similar to the end of this movie where we get a brief rundown of all the characters' bios and backstories by a central person in the movie.
That was... so it did not meet my expectations of 3.
I predicted it would get a 2.
Okay.
Out of 5.
Would you keep a 2, or would you make it lower?
I make it a 1.
Oh, Jesus.
I give it a 1 out of 5, and I'm taking 1 because I'm disappointed in Zack Snyder. I know that Zack Snyder can do better than this, and this was bad.
Talking about can do better.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in our next review, which will be for movie number 2, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Any final words we have about this one, though? Nope. Next movie.
If I did not have to do, if I didn't have to do a podcast, I absolutely would not be seeing part 2.
Okay? Fair. I forgot about part 2.
I would have watched part 1 anyway. Out of just curiosity,
and I would have let you tell me about it
without doing the podcast. But I would not have watched part 2. Like, if we weren't doing this podcast and we just watched this movie, I would completely ignore part 2 when it came out. I would never see it, and I would never be curious about how
read about it.
I wouldn't even be curious about how it ended.
I think I know how it ends. It's
going to end where Cora has twins, but she has to keep their identity secret, so they have to take each of the babies to different planets to be adopted by different families.
All right. Stay tuned for our next movie review for Aquaman. So the second movie that we just saw this yesterday, the second half of our double feature episode, is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This is the sequel to the first Aquaman that came out in 20-something.
Sidebar.
Yeah.
Could you remember when we were kids and we used to go to the drive-in?
Absolutely.
Could you imagine being a kid at the drive-in, seeing Aquaman, and then turning around to watch Rebel Moon?
No. I'd be so disappointed.
Yeah.
I'd be asleep. I probably would fall asleep halfway through Rebel Moon. Or vice versa. Whatever one we started with, the second one would only see
like
half
that.
Of.
What an awful driving experience that.
That wouldn't have been good. Mom would have wasted the money.
Anyway, back to the fact. Well, it wouldn't have been a waste of too much money because we would have faked like we were 12 to get in a discount anyway. So.
Yeah, somebody would have been in the trunk or something. Yeah. So
okay, back to the facts.
Released December 22nd, 2023. Directed by James Wan, who is also the director of the first Aquaman. He's also done Saw, Insidious, The Conjuring, so he's known in the horror space for doing good horror movies. He also directed Fast 7, so he got a nice filmography there with different genres of movies. And
that might be the last Fast movie.
No, yeah, because he left the last one, right? He was going to do the last one, and then he said no, thank you.
Yeah,
right. Runtime of 2 hours and 2 minutes. Budget of $205 million, which is
crazy.
High. I saw this number and was like, "Ooh, loud." Box office right now, it is projected to do well. The numbers in right now. We're recording on Saturday. The movie just came out yesterday.
Thursday.
Thursday. This is including, I believe, Thursday night preview. So these are Thursday and Friday numbers. 13.7 million domestic, which is
terrible.
Not good. It's not good. If you don't remember, the last Aquaman made $1 billion. It's one of the only.
It's the only DCEU film to make $1 billion.
Wonder Woman made $1 billion too. I think maybe Jay's gonna check on that. But it is one of the few DCEU movies that made $1 billion. Currently, is projected for the weekend to do 28 to 32 3-day weekend. And since this is a holiday, they're giving it some leeway, so it's projected to do 38 to 42 million over the whole Christmas holiday.
Wonder Woman made $823 million, so
close.
It was more in the Multiverse of Madness realm.
So this is the only $1 billion maker for DCU. Crazy.
Yeah, this is their gemstone.
It is not remotely gonna make anything close to what the first one made.
No, if anything, it's good it made $1 billion because they're gonna have to dip into that surplus to make up for
gone.
what they
that
lost.
That surplus is
gone. Oh yeah, it's gone. It's been so long
point.
At this point. Yeah.
So box office wise, it's not doing good. It's doing worse than the Marvels, by the way. If we want
Blue Beetle.
And Blue Beetle and The Flash. It's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good. Rating, cinema score is a B, which is not good for superhero movies. Superhero movies, you want either an A+, an A, or A-.
And to remind people, cinema scores have nothing to do with critics. Cinema scores are people who stand outside of the movie theaters and poll people as they are leaving the theaters to get their honest, unabridged opinion.
Right. And B for superhero movies is literally an F. Pretty much.
Yes.
Anything in the B's, they're like, this movie is dead.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes is not any better, really. Critic score is 37, this is actually lower than I thought the critics would give it, had not seen the movie yet. But 37% for the critics. Audience score is a 77, which is also lower. Had not seen the movie yet. When I saw these, we hadn't seen it yet, which is also lower than I thought it would be.
For reference, Aquaman 1 had a critic score of 66%.
Okay.
And an audience score of 72%.
Oh.
So audiences only liked this movie 5% more than they liked the last one.
But the critic score is nearly doubled.
The critics hated it twice as much.
Okay. So yeah, to summarize, before we get into the actual plot and all that, it's sad to see the DCEU go out like this. I will say, every DC movie that's come out this year has not been good. The Flash, and I can't say has not been well received because I haven't seen anything else besides Wonder Woman. Because I didn't see The Flash, but it was not well received. I didn't see Shazam because I hated the first one. I did not see... Oh, we saw Blue Beetle. My fault.
Well, it kind of just ruined the morale of all the fans seeing these movies once all of the DCEU leadership stuff came out, and then them saying that the movies are a cul-de-sac to nowhere because we're selling it, and it just kind of ruined they tainted the water before these movies even came out. Yeah,
so DCEU is 10 years. I think this year would have made 10 years. Going out sad. Outside. And I don't think James Gunn did this movie any favors announcing his lineup before all these movies came out.
It would have made more sense to end it at The Flash. I would say the ending of The Flash.
This was supposed to come out before The Flash, right?
Mm-hmm. The ending of The Flash makes a lot more sense as the end of the DCEU than this does.
Yeah. So it ain't great.
No.
It ain't great. Let's summarize the plots. I can do this in 15 seconds. Black Manta is mad that Aquaman killed his dad, so now he's out for revenge. Aquaman needs to go get his brother to go help defeat Black Manta. Boom, boom.
That's literally the plot. That's the plot. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is pretty straightforward, almost to its fault. They could have added a little bit of spice, a little bit of plot. There was no plot twist. What was the plot twist in this?
There was no plot to it. It was straightforward.
Okay,
they knew.
I was trying to think like maybe they threw something in there, but nope, they didn't. They literally did not.
They knew that it was Black Manta from the beginning.
Yep.
He was the central focus and the villain. I had some issues with that.
What you see is what you get in the trailer.
Yeah, the movie is just extended more trailer.
Yeah, and we'll do non-spoiler first and spoilers.
That sounds weird, but
since this one is like, in the cinemas and stuff, we'll do a non-spoiler section. I was disappointed. I was expecting this not to be like groundbreaking, but I thought I would enjoy myself more.
I would say Aquaman 2 makes Aquaman 1 seem like a much more serious movie.
Really? Because they say Aquaman, and I admittedly have only seen parts of the first Aquaman. They said the first Aquaman still had that kind of goofy, funny feel.
But you know what? This movie, kind of like how Thor Ragnarok makes Thor 1 seems like such a different movie. Thor 1 in comparison to Ragnarok seems like a very serious toned movie where you have two brothers who are fighting for a throne, and one is so greedy that he has to be casted out and relearn what it's like to be a person before coming back. And then you have a brother who's adopted, who finds out he's adopted, and their dad might be dying. Like, it's so serious, and then you get to Ragnarok where everything's goofy.
Yeah,
this kind of does the same thing, except this was not a good movie.
No, it was very. There was one review that said it was like everything but the kitchen sink, or everything and the kitchen sink.
Yeah,
it was literally everything in the kitchen sink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, they threw everything at the wall and was like, we don't care if it actually sticks. We're going to include it anyway.
So, actors and actresses who did and did not do a good job. Patrick Wilson.
There it is. I was going to say, I blanked on his name for a second. Patrick Wilson was probably my favorite, followed by Yaya.
Mine goes Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
Yaya.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole Kidman.
Okay.
Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, who did he play again?
The
chief of staff.
He was
military general. Whatever.
Mira's dad. Yeah, military general.
Oh, that was her dad?
Yes. He's from the first one.
Okay, I just said I didn't watch all of the first one.
The only two characters with red hair in the whole
movie. Had a lot of gray popping, okay?
And then after Dolph Lundgren, it's the Gimli crab from Lord of the Rings.
You ain't named Jason Momoa yet.
And then it's Jason Momoa, and then it's Amber Heard.
I didn't mind.
That's my order. I didn't mind any of the characters.
Yeah, I didn't mind anybody, but
as far as interesting and good characters in this movie, that's the order for me.
Patrick Wilson definitely.
He was a star.
He was one who showed up the most out of everybody who just phoned it in. it gave me very much, we just reading this, we just doing this because we got a contract and we just want to finish this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get it out of the way. Mm-hmm. That is the vibe I got from mostly all of the actors.
And it didn't seem like anybody didn't want to be in the movie.
It didn't seem like they didn't want to be in the movie, but it's just also, it's almost as if, it's weird because the announcement of the end of the DCEU was after this movie was made. Mm-hmm. So it's like, did y'all kind of have some preconceived, we know we're not getting a third and we're like, we don't care, so we're just kind of like meh
I
about
think James Wan does not like making these movies.
Then why do it?
He was signed on and the check.
So Tika Waititi.
And if you know a company's going out of business, you want to get all the money that you can from them, especially if they're throwing it out, because DC,
it feels like that.
WB is throwing money at people.
It feels like we're here because we don't want to get fired type of portrayal in this movie. So nobody really did like a horrible job, but nobody outside of Patrick Wilson, marginally, everybody else was just there.
Yeah, no horrible jobs, but this was just a bad job to have.
Yeah.
Who did not do a good job?
You think somebody was just kind of like, ooh.
I didn't like Randall Park's character at all.
I did not. Yeah,
his character was
terrible. He was my least favorite because in the MCU he plays kind of like that goofy kind of guy, but he doesn't come off as dumb.
Yeah, this character is not. He does not play a good scientist.
Yes, for him
he doesn't do anything sciencey.
We don't see him do anything sciencey, and for him to be a scientist, he was way too naive,
and he was way too sketchy. It made no sense how Randall Park was still. It made no sense how the rest of the Randall Park, if spoiler alert, is in this movie. He's working with Yaya.
Yeah.
To help Yaya accomplish his goal. His real goal is he just really just wants to be able to say, I've been to Atlantis, I've seen it. Right. He's just a regular scientist, but he ends up working with the bad guys in order to get it done. And it just did not make any sense how he was so sketchy, and when he was obviously trying to secretly help the good guys.
Yeah.
It was so obvious to a point of the only reason he's not getting away with stuff is because nobody's actually looking at him in the scene. But he looks sketchy when he's doing
and his character is literally an innocent guy.
Yeah.
He's literally, I'm a scientist. I wanted to see something. In order to do that, I had to work along with the bad guys, and now they won't let me go.
And it just made no sense where it's like he's moving sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking sketchy. He clearly knows too much. And it made no sense how the bad guys would be like, yeah, let's just give him free reign to run around the ship and transmit signals.
I thought at some point they were going to stick him in a jail cell or something, but nope, he free reign.
I was like, why is he not in holding or something?
One other thing before we get into spoilers, I would say I was expecting more visual spectacle out of this based on the trailers. I thought it was going to be really visually stunning and loud and bright and colorful. It's definitely colorful, but as far as kind of like visual spectacle, it felt kind of flat for me. I think it was just okay.
As far as
maybe the wigs was throwing me off.
Visual spectacle
underwater.
The first one set an expectation for me because the first one's action sequences were the best part of the movie.
Okay.
Because they were all one takes.
Okay.
Even across like whole landscapes or whole towns, it's a one shot. You're seeing Jason Momoa fight and the camera moves, and you're seeing Amber Heard fight and is moving back and forth.
Okay.
And it really set the tone. The action here was kind of just nothing.
Yeah.
All the fight scenes here were nothing. We get
nothing remarkable.
We get a semi-cool trident fight at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I guess.
Between Yaya and Jason Momoa.
You're right. That was probably the best fight scene. That was
like the last 5 minutes of the film.
The last boss. I wouldn't even.
And they have other fights and altercations throughout the movie that are just nothing. They're nothing.
Yeah.
They look like nothing. Nothing is happening, and then everybody lives and escapes.
I will say the underwater wigs threw me off. It just couldn't. Everybody's hair was always moving.
It was like that in the first one, but the CGI was a lot better in the first one.
I'm trying to think of how Little Mermaid did it.
Well, what they do is they have them put on a wig cap.
Right.
And all the hair is fake. It's not a wig.
Right.
It's all just CGI.
But the CGI in Little Mermaid, like everybody had hair, but I don't remember it being so distracting to me. I think because it was moving so much, I just kept looking at it like.
The CGI in Little Mermaid was better than the CGI in Aquaman too. That's why.
Yes. Okay. There it is. Anything else we want to say before we get into spoilers?
Any side characters who stood out or surprise performances? The Gimli crab stood out.
I like the crab. Mm-hmm. He had a little bit of
For anybody that doesn't know what I'm saying, the guy who played Gimli in Lord of the Rings voiced this crab general character in Aquaman 2. And I liked him because it's Gimli, and he was basically just Gimli as a talking sea crab crustacean.
His jokes landed out of everybody's jokes.
His jokes were good.
Everybody else's jokes, not so much.
So side characters, no surprises for you?
No, none. No surprises.
So are we ready to talk about spoilers?
Let's get into it. We'll get to spoiling in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so the crux of the movie is, once again...
How do you even spoil this?
Black Manta.
It's so obvious.
The crux of the movie, of course, is Black Manta again. He's the villain from the first one. He's the villain in this one. The bonus that he has in this movie is he has an evil trident that was once owned by Sauron, the Dark Lord.
A green Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
Underwater Sauron.
It was the one trident to rule them all.
Yep.
It possessed anybody who took it, and it conjured up black magic that this Sauron guy used to turn all of the people of Necropolis or Necronum or whatever into zombies so that he could do two things.
Take over the world.
Take over the underworld. Take over the underwater world.
Basically.
And Atlantis. Right. But also eradicate all of the surface life by polluting it with orichalcum, which is liquid vibranium for Atlantis.
There it is.
That's used as a fuel that is super volatile and hostile to the planet.
And he loses.
Yeah, he loses. So while Black Manta is using this trident to accomplish his goal, he's being possessed by Sauron, who's really pulling his strings and telling him what to do and blah, blah, blah. But his ultimate goal is just to kill Aquaman.
Because he killed his dad.
And everybody.
Not just Aquaman. He wants to kill everybody. He wants to kill Aquaman. He wants to kill his family. And we don't know how he knows he has a baby. Oh, Aquaman.
I don't know how anybody knows.
Aquaman and Mira have a baby at some point. So Aquaman's playing dad and king, and she's playing mom and queen. And
his name's Arthur Jr.
They're trying to juggle, being new first-time parents and being the king and queen of Atlantis. And woo, that actually isn't really interesting at all. Period. But Black Manta wants to get rid of all of his happiness, essentially Aquaman's happiness.
Yeah,
and he doesn't achieve that goal.
No, he doesn't get killed, but he does commit suicide because suicide is easier than siding or taking the assistance of the man who killed his father. I respect it.
I mean, you know what? It wouldn't matter whether Aquaman, because at the very end of the movie, Black Manta's hanging off this cliff, Loki style, Thor 1 Loki style, and they offer to help him up, and like Thor and Loki, Black Manta says, no, this ain't worth it, and he floats off, and obviously he dies, just like Loki floated off, except Loki lived, and that's the end of him.
Yeah, basically said, they won't write me out, so I have to kill myself, because I don't want to be in
this
movie
movie. It don't even matter, because we know there's nothing happening after this, so that was his end. But what I was going to say was, it wouldn't matter if they went the route they went, or the route of him being saved, like giving him a redemption arc. It wouldn't have had any consequence either way.
So notes. First note, too much pee humor.
Oh yeah, you're right.
There's so many scenes of Jason Momoa changing his son's diaper and the boy is peeing on his face or peeing directly in his mouth, or he's learning how to be better at dodging the pee, so he dodges the pee.
There's a couple of gross jokes.
He dodges the pee, and then Mira uses her water bending powers to bend the pee back into his mouth, and then the octopus pees on him too. I'm just like, good Lord, I don't get this. That was
a gross. That was unnecessarily gross. Not only gross, but also it wasn't funny.
It's never funny when you're getting peed on. That's
no,
gross.
There was another gross joke that Jason Momoa said, and I was just kind of like, that's gross and not funny at all. Oh, he said a tight butthole. I was like, that's not funny.
There was a cockroach joke that went on twice that I didn't like.
Yeah, the cockroach joke.
He convinces Orm that surface walkers eat cockroaches as a delicacy. It's the shrimp of the land. Yeah, and so Orm doesn't know any better, so he eats cockroaches and he thinks they're good.
Not funny. That didn't land. None of the jokes, I won't say none. I think I might have chuckled once. Most of the jokes, 99% of the jokes in this movie did not land. They were not funny, and I'm just sitting there like, y'all tried to be funny, but it's not funny.
Yeah.
Let me out of here.
My next note is there's also a scene at the beginning where Yaya has sent Randall Park out to the Arctic to find this trident.
Yes.
Well, I don't even think they're looking for the trident.
I think they're looking for Atlantis, right?
They're looking for Atlantis.
So he can get back to go kill
He's
Aquaman.
Looking for something specifically that can help him repair his suit.
Yes,
but it's in the Arctic. They don't really explain too much about what it is.
Or I missed it, yeah.
But as soon as Randall Park gets to the site, the epicenter they're looking for magically opens just because he arrived there
or something.
And the plot demanded that
there was a nice
it crack open.
It was a nicely timed earthquake.
Yeah. My next note is I wonder if they'll find Captain America down there. It'll be a better movie.
Mine is, I mean, there were 2 MCU references in this movie, so they could have
just put a shield in the ice in the back,
like a fake budget looking Dollar Tree shield. Like, hey, they look like Captain America.
Did you have a note?
You actually led right into this note.
We have the same note then.
He just stumbled on the Magic Triton. Like, so they fall into, Randall Park's character falls into the pit after the earthquake. A monster is down there, and the co-worker that he's with gets eaten. So he sends out a distress signal. Yaya's character, David, shows up so they can rescue him. And in the midst of that, they're like, oh, you actually stumbled upon something. So they go walking through this ice cave. There's a fight. The monster comes back, and they're fighting. They're trying to save their lives, whatever. And after it's all said and done, Yaya stumbles upon it, like literally falls onto it. Like you fall in the snow and you found $20.
It was
the trident was just sitting there.
He stumbled upon it like somebody. It's like when somebody's getting evicted and they're trying to grab all their things, but they drop something on their way out the door and they don't realize it till they're gone, so
and
they
the
never go back to get it.
it.
Yeah, and the landlord finds it. He just stumbled upon the ultimate weapon, just sitting in the middle of the floor.
I that was way too convenient. Another note I have was, at first I just thought it was Jason Momoa's line delivery. I was like, everybody's line delivery looks like they reading off the page, but everybody's line delivery was just like, and then I went to the store and bought some milk. Ha 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 ha. And I'm just like,
it was bad.
Where's the emotion? Where's the range?
Where's the flavor?
Everybody in this movie can act for the most part. Like, so we know y'all can act. Why are y'all not acting in this movie?
So then we get to the most terrible part of the film, the worst part of the movie.
What was that?
Where we find out that they killed Willem Dafoe off screen.
Sir, that part was 30 seconds.
By explaining that he died. You only have 2 actors in the Aquaman franchise, and that's Willem Dafoe and Nicole Kidman. Everybody else is just playing on screen. None of these other people are actual. I'll give Dolph Lundgren the actor card because I looked at his filmography, and Dolph Lundgren has been in 99 movies as an actor, and he'll be in his 100th in 2024.
Okay.
If you don't know who Dolph Lundgren is, Dolph Lundgren played Drago in the Rocky movie, the Russian. And if you still don't know who he is, he was in Creed 2. He was the dad of the Russian that Michael B. Jordan had to fight in the second one that he decided to lose to because he realized that it would be worse for the Russian guy to go home to evil Dolph Lundgren.
That's funny because I watched, I leaned over to you and said, yeah, this is like Creed 3 for me because I only saw Creed 3 and did not watch 1 and 2.
I also think Dolph Lundgren was considered for the role of John McClane in Die Hard. That's why I said, he's from your favorite movie because I forgot he actually didn't make it into Die Hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're basically saying that they got rid of the one of 2 actors in this movie. In the 30-second, I don't even know, 30 seconds long. That little line was, they just said it and kept it moving.
I looked up why Willem Dafoe wasn't in this movie, and it said that it was a schedule conflict. And in my mind, I was like, you move a movie for Willem Dafoe. Because Willem Dafoe...
But where would he have fit in this movie, though?
Actor.
Where would it fit?
Who cares? You make space for Willem Dafoe.
So would you say this falls into your did not like section about this movie?
Yes, I did not like the fact that they said that Willem Dafoe died. He plays Volko.
Yeah,
in the first Aquaman.
The plague. No,
there's a plague that's going. I think it has to do. You know what? And
they didn't really explain it.
I thought the plague was from the orichalcum being spilled into the water, but they didn't discover the orichalcum until later on in the movie. So they never explained where this plague came from. That's been.
They could have literally not mentioned him. It would have been the same effect.
I think they alluded that it's just a random plague that came from polluting the air from the surface world.
Or polluting the sea water, I guess.
That also does not make any sense.
You said that's not enough for you.
Whatever. It's not enough to kill off Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, I personally did not. You said you either gasped or said something. You were like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, he did. And then in the next scene, Aquaman and his dad are talking about Willem Dafoe's character being a mentor. And it's just kind of like...
I'd rather hear this from Willem Dafoe than hear this from Aquaman and his dad.
We want a Willem Dafoe ghost to show up basically. In this movie. It could have worked.
It could have worked.
They could have put him in an astral plane.
Bring him back as a Force ghost or something.
Every other movie got a ancestral plane where they send people and act like Rebel Moon just had an astral plane where some...
And that didn't make any sense because I don't even think that guy he was talking to was even dead.
I don't
so
think
I'm like,
he was
why are y'all in the astral plane? The astral plane is for dead people. It's for ghosts.
Trying to think of what I liked about this movie. Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson was the best part of this movie. I enjoy all of Patrick Wilson's scenes and moments. Yeah.
I liked looking at Yaya. Does that count?
Sure, I guess.
So that's two. What I
liked Yaya's henchmen.
Nope, I did not like them.
You didn't like his second in command?
She was annoying.
She was cool. I thought she was cool because she was super camp. And
she was
really, she was acting like she was in like a Tim Burton Batman movie. She was that campy.
That crew gave me Meg to the Trench. The whole crew.
I don't even think they had enough screen time. Because like, even though Meg to the Trench characters had like,
I'm talking about the background characters of Meg too.
I like the little henchman suits. I thought they were unnecessary, but they look like little Among Us people in their little scuba suits.
I guess. Another thing I didn't like, the CGI looked real cheap.
CGI was bad, especially in the third act when they finally get to the Lost Kingdom, and it looks like it switches to stop motion a little bit.
I don't know where the $205 million went, but I don't think enough of it went into the CGI.
David Zaslav's pocket.
You right. You're probably right about that.
My next note is that Aquaman does not feel like Aquaman is not a main character, not a movie main character.
It does. This movie didn't seem like there was enough to give him a whole nother movie.
We talked about this in the car on the way home from the theater, and we were talking about how Aquaman should feel like the Thor of the MCU. But the issue with Aquaman is that even you can not like all of Thor's solo movies. Sure, they vary in taste, but Thor, the character, is written exceptionally well. Yeah. When you consider
we want more Thor at this
point.
Where
he started in Thor 1 being a spoiled brat to losing his brother and realizing he didn't want the throne.
And his father and his mom.
And his mother, to grieving all of them and becoming Fat Thor in Avengers. And then in Thor Love and Thunder, he is now the father of his own child.
Right.
That is a character arc that is crazy when you think about it in hindsight. And Aquaman is not written as well, and unfortunately he's only been in the 2 Justice League movies, right? Which that only counts as one because only one was supposed to happen. Wait, what other Justice League movie there was the Zack Snyder and the Joss Whedon.
That is the same.
Yeah, which I said only technically counts as one because only one was supposed to happen.
Movie.
The only movie Aquaman has been in is the Justice League movies and Aquaman 1, which means that he's only had the opportunity to be written once. Yeah. And they tried to make him the Thor without having any of the character development. And that's why I don't think Aquaman makes a good main character.
It just didn't give...
And he's too goofy and he's too unserious.
Way too goofy.
Your son has been kidnapped, sir.
Way too goofy.
It's time to grow up.
I don't know how much Guinness paid for the advertisement, but I was like, so all he do is drink Guinness all day?
And nobody drinks Guinness, which makes it super unbelievable because just Guinness is nasty.
What and the whole, like, I didn't understand how it was working with him and Mira living in the house above on land, but them also being king and queen below.
Yeah, so
the one character who had an issue with that, I was like, I get it, because if you are Aquaman and you king of Atlantis, you need to live full time in Atlantis. But I'm guessing that the child who is 3/4 aqua couldn't breathe underwater.
Well, so in the first movie they set a rule where in the first movie they said the only people who can breathe above water are people who are of the royal bloodline.
The kid checks that
note. The rest of the Atlantis people can't live above water. But they never show us the boy actually being underwater, so we don't know. We know he can talk to fish, but we don't know if he can actually breathe and live underwater.
He must not be able to,
because they never take him home.
Even though he's 3/4 Atlantean, I did not understand why the whole family wasn't just chilling underwater.
They never take him to Atlantis. Even in the end of the movie, after they rescue him from being kidnapped, they take him back to the dad's house at the lighthouse. He never goes to Atlantis, even at the end. So when the special counsel that he was talking about was like, they're trying to wrestle power from me. And the chick was like, yeah, because you're never here and you're our king. That makes sense.
Yeah, I was like, I get it.
You can't rule from if you're not even home. And it sets a bad example to the people you're ruling over. It's like, our king doesn't even want to be here.
Right. Yeah, so, I didn't like that I didn't get it. And they didn't bother explaining it, why it was like that.
And then he says in the movie that he doesn't even want to be king. He ends the movie as the king, even though he says, I never wanted this job.
Yep. Him and Patrick Wilson have a whole, him and Orm, have a whole discussion about, Orm wanted to be king and Aquaman coming and taking it, and Aquaman being like, yeah, I actually didn't want this job. I just took it because you were a horrible person. He's like, really? Yeah, really.
And at the end of the movie, we never get a moment where after he says, I never wanted to be king, we never even get a moment where he says, you know what? I'm glad I'm king. We end the movie with him kind of just
still being king.
I mean, he's goofy, but we still get in the movie with him with that statement of, this is not me.
Right.
I do not care about being a king or being a ruler about any of this. So I thought that was dumb. Do you have another note?
I'm trying to think of what I had before we get to like final thoughts.
I have a couple more.
Okay, go ahead with yours.
I have
because mine relate to the final minute of the movie.
There's a scene where we get to Shipwreck Cove. I don't think that's what it's called, but it's from Pirates of the Caribbean, and it looked like underwater.
You talking about where we get with Jabba the Hutt?
Yeah, we get Shipwreck Cove.
So we get Pirates of the Caribbean and Star Wars.
They go to Jabba the Hutt, and it's even super Jabba the Hutt because they even have like the singing. Yeah, the singing fish lady.
That was very random
thing, like they did in a new. What was it? Return of the Jedi.
Sure.
And my next note was, we're on Pandora because they get to the island.
You did say Pandora.
They get to the island that has been affected by all the So
global warming, I'm assuming, right?
So Yaya is being possessed by Sauron, who's telling him to take the orichalcum and throw it into volcanoes to burn it into the atmosphere and
so
destroy
that
the world.
So that can raise the temperature of Earth, and then everything can start melting and falling apart.
So
speed up global warming, basically.
Right. So the first thing that happens is, because he's doing it on this island, the island is the first thing that succumbs to the mutation from the orichalcum. So it makes everything mutated and super large. So we get big flowers, big insects and butterflies and blah blah blah, and everything wants to eat people now because that's what mutation does.
They're very large. Extremely large.
It reminded me of Pandora and Avatar. It reminded me a little bit of Journey to the Center of the Earth too. And my next note:
animals always get big when it's mutating. Like, why don't they ever get smaller?
Yeah, they never get shrink. Whenever something mutates, it doesn't shrink.
It always
turns in, and it always wants to eat people.
40 times its size, and now has an appetite for flesh.
Because when we see movies, we live in the real world. Yeah. And we know real science, and we know butterflies and grasshoppers are herbivores. But for some reason, when you make them bigger, they now eat meat.
They're carnivores.
They're eating whole mice, and now they have a taste for humans. Even though biologically, butterflies and grasshoppers don't have the digestive system to break meat down.
Yeah. But you know,
they want to eat people, so whatever. But my next note is Patrick Wilson could be Batman.
You did say that.
If we're talking about Batman Brave and the Bold, where we have an older Batman who's raising a child to be his successor, I think that would be Patrick Wilson. He's literally already there. Patrick Wilson would he's not a natural blonde because he has brown hair and
the Conjuring
movies.
Okay,
and so he could be Batman.
I would accept that.
He has the physique.
He does.
He can do his action sequences.
He also has a good evil eye.
And Batman. A good Batman makes you second guess.
Yes. His motives.
Yes. A good Batman a good Batman toes the line.
I know you like vengeance, but you a little too vengeance today.
Yeah. So a good Batman keeps Gordon on his toes.
Right.
So I think Patrick Wilson could be a good older Batman. And my last note is that these camera angles are the worst. The camera angles were some of the worst choices I've seen. And it got worse as the movie, like that third act. We were having like pan in shots on the shoes and the feet and the hands, and they were doing like, they weren't shooting like straight. They were like shooting at an angle.
Too much funny business with the camera angles.
They were doing like the tilt cam thing, like they do in Scream movies when they're doing the chase. It was awful.
You didn't like that.
I didn't like that.
My last couple of notes relate to the very end of the movie. So the end, as you can probably predict,
oh yeah, let's spoil
they
the ending.
kill Yaya sacrifices him. No, that's not a sacrifice. He opts to die versus being saved. The evil king Sauron, who showed up that possessed Yaya, they kill him.
They broke him free.
They broke him free.
He's free for like 4 seconds.
5 seconds tops. They kill him and destroy him, inconsequential to the rest of the plot. I was like, y'all really unthawed him to kill him that fast? Whatever. But at the end, they do the Wakanda thing, which I was like, y'all done ripped off a Marvel movie.
They do the Wakanda and the Iron Man thing.
Yes, I have that. That's my second note. So basically, Iron Man's like, he says this earlier in the movie. He was like, well, Atlantis needs to work with the above world, the surface world, whatever they call it. Because, we need their help and they need our help. So we need to work together so we can both improve our environments for each other. So he does the whole Wakanda thing that Black Panther did at the end of Black Panther.
Where they meet with the UN.
And they do this whole big reveal because nobody knew Wakanda was, there might have been rumors or whatever. But nobody really knew a lot about Wakanda. And nobody knows a lot about Atlantis. So he does the whole speech at the podium. And I was just like, this is literally Black Panther.
And it doesn't help that Aquaman 1 already drew those comparisons.
Ripped
anyway with
from the comic headlines.
With the whole lost Atlantean coming to Atlantis to fight for the throne. That was exactly what happened in Black Panther. It's the same thing.
So that was one thing I had. I was like, sounds like a writing ripoff. I hated the very last line of the movie where they do another Marvel callback where Aquaman says, he reveals that he's Aquaman. Like, it's obvious because he has a suit on. So you're like, huh? But he does that. You know how Tony Stark says, and I am Iron Man, or whatever he says at the end. Arthur does this, but he's already in his Aquaman getup. And he does it real, like, goofy, playfully. He literally could have did the whole mic drop thing where people pick up a mic and drop it. It all would have had the same effect. And I'm like, you just are at the UN or whatever, announcing your kingdom to the entire world, which has a lot of risk and consequences, and you being funny about it.
And think about the parallels to the I Am Iron Man, which marked the beginning of the MCU, which turned into this great thing, and the I Am Aquaman, which marked the end of the DCEU, which was this terrible, awful thing.
I just didn't understand the choice of who. They shot that, and somebody was like, yeah, we're going to say that for the DVD, because that's not quite how we want to end. Didn't like that. And then my last note is the end credits are even like a Marvel movie. So Loki.
It was like the Black Panther end credits.
Or the Marvel end credits. Literally, the Marvel end credits have a look. And they're cool. I like the end credits because it seemed like they put like a lot of work into that. But they basically have the characters done up in a certain animation style with the person's name or who was acting for that character. But it looked literally like Marvel. So we had Loki. We had a Wakanda storyline. They even say the name Loki in the movie.
He calls Patrick Wilson Loki.
Wakanda storyline, the I Am Iron Man line, and then they also took the end credits. I don't understand why you would want to end your universe on that note. But whatever.
I also thought it was weird that they defeated Yaya's team with the power of whale noises.
Oh yeah.
Because I was like, these are my sleep sounds that I put on when I go to sleep. The whale noises.
And it didn't even have an impact.
My sleep sounds.
It was just like Arthur got all the sea creatures that made noises to be able to outdo the sonic noise that Yaya's ship did, and it was just kind of like, oh, thanks, and then that was it. And then we went on to the next scene. So. Who would we recommend this movie to?
If you I wouldn't recommend it to people who liked Aquaman 1 because I think this movie does a lot to turn people around on it. Like, this movie does a lot to undo the Aquaman 1 setup.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Aquaman 1 was not a bad movie.
You would say this movie
would
be a disappointment to people who really liked Aquaman 1.
Yeah, it would. They let Jason Momoa be way too goofy.
Yeah, it's almost like he took pieces of his Fast and Furious character and
it was
planted
a lot
it
like
into
his
Aquaman.
Fast and Furious character. It was almost like that character. They copied and pasted him in this movie where he should be more serious from the first movie because he's now a king and has a family, and it seems like he got even more goofy and less serious.
Like, he don't have to be a stick in the mud, but like, it just like, sir, your son has been kidnapped.
Falling asleep at the throne.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm 2 for 2 and not recommending movies this episode. I would say if you want to finish out the DCEU, go ahead, give it a spin.
If you're curious about how it all ends, I would say read the wiki. Was this worth the theater?
No. I hate to say that, but no. You could wait for streaming.
No, and you know why I would say that? Not because it's not a theater quality film. Mm-hmm. I would say because the sound was off. The sound design in this movie was off.
I was expecting it to be louder.
It almost seemed like they turned the volume, and then maybe it was just our theater, but there was the music and the sound effects of fights and explosions and things were super drowned out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was supposed to be drowned out because they were underwater, but it was not good.
Yeah.
So I don't think the movie was produced in a way that makes it worth seeing
optimal viewing
on a screen.
Yeah.
Like, you can see this on a home TV and have the same experience.
I would agree with that.
What is our favorite line or scene in the movie?
My favorite, I actually have one for this movie.
Okay.
The scene where Orm is Amber Heard's dad, Mira's dad, obviously justified, I guess, has a thing about Orm being broken out and him fighting. And there's a scene where he is about to die because some creature has him wrapped up in his legs and about to pull him off. He asks for Orm's help, and Orm looks at him and goes, "I think I won't." And then Orm kind of pokes back around the little column or whatever, and he going about his business. So it looks like Mira's dad is about to get it, and then Orm chops the creature's legs off and saves him. But the way Orm looks at him is so much kind of like, I'm absolutely not going to save you, and you know why, and I'm going to enjoy watching you die.
Yeah. And it was justified.
It was right, and it was very good. He saves him anyway, but the way he did that, I was like, oh, you almost had me. Yeah, almost had me in the first half.
My favorite scene would be that scene as well, but I also enjoyed Orm discovering how to run.
Oh yes,
so they
that
were
was
on
funny.
the island of Pandora, and they were trying to run away from the grasshoppers, and Jason Momoa and Orm are running away, and right. Jason Momoa is leading because he's lived on the surface. Orm has never lived on the surface, so he doesn't understand the concept of running.
Right.
So he runs around like a Naruto character, like with his arms behind him. And when Jason Momoa tells him, "Why are you running like that?" He's like, "I don't run because I'm from underwater.
He's never had to run."
So Jason Momoa's like, "You pump your arms with your legs and you go faster." So as soon as he starts doing it, he zooms past. He
turned into Captain America and Black Panther in Endgame.
Yeah, so he basically runs as fast as like Cat Bucky and Black Panther in Civil War,
right?
Where they're running past all the cars in traffic. I thought that was funny.
That was pretty funny.
One thing we didn't do for our Rebel Moon review is, was there anything we would change?
A lot.
Any improvements we would make to this movie?
I make a different movie.
Yeah, I would make a different movie, but more practically, I thought the Topo was useless.
Yeah.
So in the movie, we're introduced to Topo, who is a comic book character. He is one of Aquaman's many fish sidekicks. He's an octopus who has the ability to camouflage, and he's super smart. And he's the exact same in this movie. However, when he's introduced, Nicole Kidman introduces him as this genetically enhanced octopus who's super smart.
He's like covert ops or something.
Yeah, she says like master of espionage.
Yeah, there it is.
And he does one thing. He assists with getting Orm out of prison.
He does 1.5 things.
He assists with getting Orm out of prison. And I thought they were going to give him something cool to do. In the first Aquaman, they had when they had the fight between Aquaman and Orm, they had a giant octopus that could play the drums. Yeah. They didn't even have Topo do anything that cool in this movie.
You know what? She said he could play a lot of songs, and I was expecting a song.
I was expecting him to do she said she's good at the drums and music. And
something
I thought he was
going
to do something. He didn't do anything.
Nope.
And there were scenes where Aquaman's talking to Topo, but Topo doesn't speak English. So I'm like, what is Topo saying? Because he doesn't actually react to anything. He just makes
noises of some sort.
And I thought that they wasted him a lot of times, even when they get to Pandora. And he goes with them. And I'm thinking, okay, he's going to be on this island with them. there's going to be the three of them, and they're going to have this adventure together and stop Yaya. But as soon as they get to the island, Aquaman tells them, "Oh, Topo, go tell everybody else where we are." I'm like, you're from this super advanced underwater. You don't have trackers. You have to send the octopus away to go tell Nicole Kidman where you go.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
That's pointless.
One thing I think they could have improved was it was obvious that they cut Amber Heard out of this in certain parts.
And I didn't mind her in the movie.
She actually
served a purpose.
She served purpose twice.
Multiple purposes.
She saved Arthur literally twice in this movie. So if they were going to do that, they should have made it the cuts a little more seamless, because it was obviously she could have been in it more and been utilized more fully, and then they were just like, no, we, due to the controversy or whatever, we're gonna cut you out. And it's like, no, y'all literally could have left it, and the movie would have had the same quality.
I got a plus and minus for you.
Yes.
I love Black Manta's laser beams.
Okay.
They were effective, and when he shot you with those, you were down.
You were flying.
It wasn't like a Cyclops thing where he just shot you into a wall and you were just unconscious.
You was going several football fields.
He burnt people to a crisp with them things.
Your skin was nice and red and deep fried.
Right. So and those are Atlanteans who are superpowers. So if he shot a person, they would disintegrate.
He definitely did some damage. Yeah. You're right.
So I liked his laser beams, but I did like the fact that I like the fact that when he shot Mira and he shot Orm, there was obviously consequences to that. It wasn't like we're down, we're going to get back up and fight.
Yeah.
But I do see that if they cut Mira's scenes out, I find it a little ridiculous, because in the ways that they kept her in, she was extremely helpful.
Right.
With fighting all those zombie dudes and her little water magic.
She worked.
She had that tornado. She almost stopped them by herself, stealing an orichalcum from Atlantis.
Listen, she was putting in the work.
So she put in work. So there was a bunch of characters who didn't do anything, and in her limited amount of screen time, she at least did something. She took some people out.
And she saved some people.
Some people.
So
final words about the movie and our rating.
It is sad to see that the DCEU, that thing is ending on this note. I was hoping for a more enjoyable movie, and if you just wait for streaming, I would say just wait for streaming.
Absolutely just wait for streaming this movie. We predicted this movie would have a 3 out of 5.
Both of us said 3 out of 5.
So what was your after viewing rating?
2 out of 5.
Yeah. I also have to take a point from this.
Sorry.
I went in with low expectations and expected to be a decent movie, but it kind of did worse than my expectations. At the 37, I'll maybe give it a 45.
It was almost %.
Well, Rebel Moon was just unwatchable. Aquaman just ended up being a big fat nothing.
Okay.
A big fat, and I say fat because it was long.
Yeah.
It was a big hefty nothing.
They could have trimmed like 145 and I would have been a little less restless.
Yeah.
I think.
So that is the end of both of our double feature reviews this week. What are we doing next week?
The Color Purple. So it comes out actually on Christmas, but our episode comes out on Christmas, so obviously we can't do that. But yeah, our next episode will be Color Purple and just Color Purple. I don't think we're doing another double feature, maybe until March when we do.
Are all of the What If episodes going to be out by the time Color Purple comes out?
I could check on that.
Maybe. If all of them are out, we can do What If.
We'll do a What If little mini review and then do.
We don't have to do episode
Purple.
by episode.
Yeah, we'll do Color Purple. So I'm excited. I'm not a big musical fan, but
I'm not either. But I would say the press tour and seeing the cast have fun with each other and the interviews and stuff. I think they have really good chemistry, so I'm definitely
I like all of the actors in this.
Literally everybody.
So it's kind of like you have to see it and we have to review it.
Yes.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Please leave us a review on your podcast app, or you can leave us a review at vaguelynerdypodcast.com. And if you're listening to this on Christmas, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas, Harry.
All right. Thanks.